6:06.
6:06 p.m. in the Becket Planning Board. I lost my notes.
This thing that you sent me, what page am I supposed to be looking at?
The meeting will be called to order. Agendas were posted online and were available for everyone who wanted one. This meeting is being held in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 48, and the bylaws of the town of Becket. The decision to issue a special permit requires a minimum of 4 positive votes from a 5-member board. My name is Robert Ronzio, and I'm the chair of the planning board. Planning board members present this evening: to my left, Hal Blake, the clerk pro tem; to my right, Ann Crowett, who is the clerk. Seated to across from me is James Levy, who was the vice chair of the meeting. Seating across from him and probably out of view is Jesse Parati, who was our administrative assistant. And on the Zoom board is Dr. Howard Lerner, who is the 5th member of the board. So the board is completely present. All right, as chair, it is my responsibility in the provision of the open meeting law, Mass General Law, Chapter 38. I ask if anyone in the audience is going to be making a video or audio recording of this session or transmit this meeting through any medium.
I know that Terry Cowbell will be of the.
Okay, so at this point, what I'm going to do is, if you raise your hand, or what's the other way they can? They have what's the control 6? I think it is.
*9 raises your hand.
*9. If you're using a phone, *9, or your computer, *9 will get you recognized by us. There's one. I see Michael Goodenough. Okay. He's recording the meeting. Okay. Is there anybody else that's going to be recording the meeting?
Terry Cowbell. I mentioned that already.
You got Terry. Okay. You've got more than one screen, so when you get can you scroll through those just to make sure that we've nobody there.
I've only got 2 screens.
I got my reading glasses on. I can hardly see the screen.
We can see it.
Yeah, okay. Well, I can take them off and
Shaw Isaacson is recording.
Larry Parnas said from the Eagle.
Larry Murphy too.
Alrighty.
That it?
I think so. We got one more coming in.
Okay, as soon as you give me the green light, you can move on.
Well, he's just kind of coming in, so once he gets connected, a couple more coming in.
Good.
I think so. Okay, I'm going to be shutting the chat off now, just so everyone is aware.
Okay, so we're on. Just to let you know, everyone know that we're also recording the meeting. Jesse is recording the meeting, and you're recording it both ways. You're recording it on Zoom, and you have a separate recorder.
It's recording on Zoom, and I have a recorder. Yes.
Right, she has a recorder, so it's being backed up just in case. All right, as part of the same law, I want to inform those in attendance that no person shall address the meeting without permission of the chair. All right, and since we're in the discussion phase, we will not be taking any comments during the discussion deliberation phase that we're in for the special permit. After that, if you look on the agenda, there is a part for public input. That public input will be for any other business other than the deliberation process. So we're ready to move into the deliberation. We were in the big discussion last 2 weeks ago regarding neighborhoods and regarding what would we consider to be, who would we consider to be part of the neighborhood. Because in our bylaws, we have to address certain issues regarding the neighborhood. All right, and so it's difficult to define what a neighborhood is. We didn't really come to any resolution last time. In the meantime, I perused the entire zoning act to see if there was a definition anywhere in the zoning act. That's chapter 40A. And I read all 31 pages of the document, and only found one reference in there, and it really, I don't even remember what it said, but it really wasn't, it didn't define what a neighborhood was. The closest that I could come to anything was in section, I've got it here, section, I think it's 9, which talks about persons of interest, all right? And it defines those as being the abutters and those people who were notified by the planning board as being persons of interest. Yes.
I have someone on the telephone ending in 9866. Could you identify yourself, please? Please press *6 to unmute yourself. Could you let me know who you are, please? Got the meeting on hold for you.
Fred Braun.
Okay, thank you. I think we got you in here. Okay. Thank you.
All right, can I go? Can I continue? Okay. I made an error there. It wasn't section 9, section 11 of the zoning act. And it says parties in interest as used by this chapter shall mean petitioners, abutters, owners of land directly opposite or on a public or private way or street, and abutters to the abutters within 300 feet of the property line. So that's that. Oh, okay, no, that's fine. I have another one of those documents around. No. This is I started to write my decision. Right. These are notes that I made over the course of the last 2 weeks. All right. What?
These are my notes.
Yeah. So I put them.
But I didn't write anything down yet.
No. I did not. This is not a decision. These are notes for a decision. Okay. These are notes for a decision. And if you look at it, okay, basically what I did is I copied out section 11 of the state statute so that I highlighted it so I could define it. Okay. That's what I did.
I purposely didn't write anything complete down because I wanted to hear what's going on.
Well, no, that's where we're at. So that's where we are at this point in time.
Okay.
And so basically I'm going to open up the discussion to the folks here at the meeting who would like to make some comments, or anybody want to start?
Well, I had some ideas which I wrote down because I'm trying to get this as concrete as possible.
Sure.
And so I wanted to look at some of the bones of contention that keep popping up or popped up in my own head.
Sure.
As we went through this, and I wrote down, if anybody wants to look, I made copies at home in case anybody wanted to see it.
I read it at home, but I didn't see the copy.
Thank you. Okay, do you need?
Well, yeah,
I almost have it memorized.
Okay. The first one I wrote down because I think it's very important for everybody who's listening and taking part in this whole process to understand that unless the Conservation Commission agrees, this is out the window.
Well, it's not.
Then it goes to court.
Okay. Well, no.
Right, Bob, he's talking.
Right, fine. I'll let him finish. Okay.
Then it goes to court.
Right.
Okay, and that has nothing to do with me.
Right.
I'm an historian, not a lawyer. I'm not going to court. That's another issue. The Conservation Commission is gonna have to approve this.
No, they,
So
Dennis,
they have to approve the site. If they have a serious problem, then it becomes an issue. We can't overrule them. How about that? Is that the truth?
no,
no,
that's not the truth.
We
Okay?
can overrule the conservation?
No, the Conservation Commission can look at whatever is there and then they can make recommendations back to the board for any changes. You know, I doubt, having looked at the site, that there is anything the conservation is going, they may have to modify the plan that is in existence, but they don't have the authority to basically say, no, you can't build this building. There's plenty of places to put, you know, they may have to make the building a little bit smaller, they may have, you know, I don't know what's gonna happen. That all happens, James, when, if this is approved, if this plan is approved, contingent upon the approval of the site plan that will be submitted to the Conservation Commission. They don't really submit to the Conservation Commission, they submit to the DEP, Department of Environmental Protection. And they submit a notice of intent. And then the state basically reviews that, and they send it back down to the Conservation Commission. And then the Conservation Commission reviews the plan. And they will look at it, and you know, I've talked to Dave Johnson. Dave Johnson basically has told me that they are planning on hiring or requiring the applicant to hire a consultant who will work on the behalf of the board, right, to advise them as to the plan. And then they'll make their recommendations, and if they have to make modifications, they'll make modifications. Okay,
Because
but it doesn't kill the plan.
Because I know when the CPC was giving money for a playground down by Yoka Brook,
Right.
we were told directly that brook, nothing can be within a certain distance of that brook.
Correct.
So if we could, so it had to be moved.
Right, it had to be moved.
Right, it could,
If they could move it, they could go on the plan that they had.
right,
That doesn't denies them to a certain area. For instance, one of the bones of contention of this particular plan is a stream that was close by. And the definition of that stream is it an intermittent stream or was it a perennial stream? And according to the discussion that I heard from the DEP basically or at least through the Conservation Commission, that it is not a perennial stream. So it's not 200 feet, okay? It's 100 feet. And then so that will be part of the review. That's not for us to decide, that's for the Conservation Commission to decide. So if let's say they rule that it is a perennial stream, okay? And there's very, very definite guidelines on what constitutes a perennial stream, all right? If it meets those requirements, then they may have to move some of the things that they may have on the plan as we got it.
okay,
But it doesn't mean that it's going to stop the plan. Now, sure, if the whole area turned out to be a wetland, okay, there's also something in the guidance that allows for replication. Are you familiar with replication?
offset.
Well, no, well, yes, an offset, right. Replication allows you to trade, land, okay, if you have it available. And what you have to do is you have to create an area. If you take an area away, then you have to create a new and equal area somewhere else, okay? So for instance, the Sherwood Forest, we were redoing a dam. And we actually redid 2 dams. In both projects, we had to come up with a reclamation area of 5,000 square feet. And it wasn't even on the site. It was somewhere else of land that we had that met the requirements of the Conservation Commission. We proceeded, built 1 replication area. That took care of the first 2 dams. And then this time we did it, and they have a 3-year review process to make sure that the wetlands actually turns into a wetland. And that the plants that we planted.
Can I suggest we move on I
Yeah,
think
so,
contingent upon the conservation committee approval is sufficient
right,
at this point.
okay, what's next, James?
Do we want an 8-foot fence rather than a 6-foot fence? We want to suggest that they come before us to get an 8-foot fence instead of a 6-foot
That would
fence.
require a different approval because it's right now that the bylaws say 6 foot.
Right.
I know, but we did it with
Well,
the,
you can, I said, but it would require a different approval.
right, I agree, but we could tell them we would like.
Well, it would
to
be
see-
a stipulation that you could put in the conditions and basically say that they would have to come back. It wouldn't affect the application as it is, it's just that they would have to come back and basically take the fence and make it an 8-foot fence rather than a 6-foot fence.
Okay, do people on the board think that's a wise thing or an unnecessary thing?
I think it's unnecessary.
Next thing,
Go ahead.
I think, it's a good idea, we've done it before, and, it's good
That was
for,
a different circumstance for a solar facility.
right?
No.
Little creatures coming through,
It was for the solar farm.
Yeah, but, okay, it wasn't an 8-foot fence, it was a 6-foot fence that was elevated,
Trench, yeah.
that was elevated off the ground 6 additional inches to allow the little critters to run underneath.
and I would approve of that.
Right, well, anyway.
I don't understand why you're so concerned or not concerned. It
I'm
just
not-
doesn't matter, no.
I said, I don't think it's necessary.
Well,
Are you saying it's necessary for the critters to run underneath in that case?
I'm not saying it's absolutely necessary. There's all kinds of stipulations being put on this, and another one wouldn't hurt.
Anybody else? Howard?
I'm listening.
All right.
What would be the advantage of a 6-foot fence versus an 8-foot fence or vice versa?
The critters, you know.
Well, no,
We're talking about a 25-foot, what is the purpose of the fence to begin with? Let's determine what height would meet that requirement.
Fence is required.
It's
Well,
required, you have to have it.
a fence is a requirement of the CCC, okay?
I understand that, but what's the rationale behind the fence?
The fence is to keep people from entering the facility, okay? And that's why the fence goes all the way around the entire facility. And it's gated so that, and they have a 24-hour guard. It's just to keep people from, getting into the facility. Now, there are a lot of other security measures besides the fence. And the fence, in this case, primarily, is up against the road, okay? And, the building is set back 50 feet from the road, which is 10 additional feet that our normal setback requirements in the town of Becket are 40 feet. Personally, I'd like to see them back 100 feet, but that's not the way the bylaw is written. So the question then is if you're standing on the road, okay, what's the purpose of the fence? Okay, if you raise the fence up, all right, then that makes it easier for somebody to dig or wiggle their way under the fence, especially if the ground is uneven. As far as the critters are concerned, personally, I'm a nature lover myself, and certainly it's nice to let the rabbits go underneath the fence. But then the fox that's chasing the rabbit, he can't get under the fence, so you deprive him of a meal. That's one way of looking at it. There are lots of other ways of looking at it. When we had the solar facility, basically it was the Conservation Commission thought it was a good idea to raise the fence 6 inches off the ground to allow those little critters to run back and forth. The planning board at that time decided to let them raise the fence up. The second part of that was screening on the fence itself, okay? And what happened was that people who were in the neighborhood who were looking at the fence basically said they didn't really want to look. They didn't want to be able to look through the fence. They would prefer that the fence have some kind of screening fabric put on it. At the time, the applicant basically said, whatever screening you want, we'll put it on there. Whatever color you want, we'll put it on there. And so that was listed as an additional requirement. And so what it did was, if you were standing on the road, you would see the screening, you would see the fence. The screening, could be black, it could be green. It would, the purpose is to blend, is to have it blend into the background so that you don't really see what's beyond the fence. All right, and of course the facility. I don't know what color the facility is going to be, the greenhouse. And it's going to be about 23 feet high, but setback 50 feet. You're going to see it no matter what. Okay. So, an additional 2 feet is, it's, our bylaws really basically, unless you have extenuating circumstances, to add the additional 2 feet. And we did have cases down in North Becket where there was a fence that was put up. It's normally referred to in the literature as a spike fence once you go over 2 feet. It was because they were peeping toms and there were other issues between neighbors, and we did allow an 8-foot fence, right? But it's done on a very, very limited basis. There's only like 2 or 3 fences, and then when you get down to the road, okay, you want to be able, you don't want to block the view on corner angles, especially if you've got driveways. Okay, so you want, the higher the fence is, the more difficult it is for somebody that's driving out of a driveway that's on an adjacent piece of property. In this case, the adjacent the fence does not end anywhere near a property line that's in contention. So, I personally don't see the need for an 8-foot fence.
Howard's asking the question.
Howard?
Is this fence, as it's now constituted, is this like a stockade solid fence, or is this a chain link fence with some kind of fabric that's solid, or is it just chain link that we're going to be able to see through? What's the parameters of the fence now?
We haven't decided. We could actually stipulate what type of fence it is. All right. The fence that was put over at the solar farm was a chain link fence with the fabric, and if you look at it with the fabric on it, basically it looks like kind of like a stockade fence, except because you can't see through it. Right? Jesse Perotti lives over by that facility. Have you ever looked at that fence over there?
I can't see it at all from the house at all.
You can't see it at all. All right. But we've never had a problem with any of the neighbors coming back and basically saying that they can see through the fence. The other thing is it allows for the screening will allow for airflow. All right, to some degree. If you put up a more solid fence, and it doesn't have to be a stockade fence. It could be one of those white fences, or the plastic fences that you see all over the place. But it could be a different color. It doesn't have to be white. It could be green, or it could be black, or it could be some other pattern that you have on it. If you want to put those kinds of conditions on it, we can do that. But the fence has to be there. And
if you have a fence that allows airflow, I don't think that would be appropriate. James, you weren't with us when we did our site visit to the Tetra facility in Connecticut. We took off our masks halfway up the hill, and as we got closer to the building itself, outside the building, we did smell the marijuana odor. There was no wind at the time to whisk it away or to put it further into abutting properties, but I did smell it. Jesse, I think I remember you smelled it outside, or you don't have the ability to smell it. Did you smell it?
I smelled it, but I was almost on top of the facility. There was no fence. They had no fence at all. Okay.
Was that an outdoor or indoor grow facility?
It was an indoor grow, but there were, the way the facility was designed, and they took over an old facility, and it didn't have a lot of, I think were they growing, were they growing?
Okay.
Yeah, they were growing hemp over there, okay? So they didn't have all the requirements because hemp is an agricultural product.
But the point is.
You could smell it,
You
okay?
could smell
You
it.
could smell it, but now you wanna talk about the facility itself, okay?
No, he's talking about the fence. I just.
No, because you can't talk about the fence without talking about the facility. The
All
facility.
right, so what's the pleasure? Do we want to have a chain link with fabric, or do we want to have a stockade fence? And then we talk about the height, but I think the, when we're talking about character of neighborhood and all that, I think, if we're talking about that, at some point, do we want to have something more natural? Does that make a difference?
Well, that's why I was trying to tell you, okay, we've had fences erected in Sherwood Forest, for example, by the dams, okay? And what we did is we used black chain link fencing. And if you have reviewed it, which I know you've had many, many times, as you approach the fence, it blends in completely. It just, that color, I thought green was going to be better, but green is actually worse. You think, well, the foliage is all there. Black, for some reason, blends in much better than any other color. So a chain link fence with the screen. Now I've seen this. I've been over to the fence that they had erected, which is a chain link fence all the way around the solar farm. Al, you've been over there, all right? All right. They did not use a black fence material. They used a galvanized metal fence, okay? And when you see the galvanized metal fence, it stands out, okay? But where the fabric is that they used, the black fabric on it, and you really can't see that from the roads, you have to actually get behind the facility and look from between the houses that are there on Route 20 and the actual fence that's there. And as I said, once the fence went up and once the fabric was put on there, we got no complaints that I'm aware of.
What's the pleasure of the board? We should stipulate what type of fence.
What?
We should give some conditions on the type of fence. You don't want galvanized metal in its entirety without any kind of thing that blends in. I know what you're talking about in Sherwood Forest because it's right near my property, but so it's certainly.
No. The one that's by your property, if you remember, okay, the first fence that we put up was a galvanized fence, and it's disgusting looking. Okay,
right, very
so
objectionable.
if you go over to Little Robin, or you go over to the one that we just did on Lancelot Lake, okay, those are black, and they don't show up at all. Okay, it's like.
So can we stipulate that?
I think that would be wise.
Sure.
All right.
Okay. The
So
third.
you want to stay on this, and you want to actually,
Well, let's finish the fence topic first, and then move on before we move on to the next subject.
fine.
So we've all agreed to the black stockade, the chain link, but that's coated with the black material.
Right, and
I didn't say I would agree.
No, she didn't agree. Okay, here's what I wrote. Okay, because I was looking at all these same issues over the last 2 weeks. I said a 6-foot tall security fence with mesh screening will be erected and maintained to minimize the visual impact of the greenhouse from the public way. I didn't say all the way around the building. I said because I didn't figure that the property on both sides and the rear of the property are all private land, and that it doesn't abut anybody. So it really had. I mean, if you want the fabric all the way around the facility, you can do that. But I see no need to do that. Yes, Jesse.
I
You got somebody?
have a telephone number, someone ending in 5752. I just entered. Could you let me know who you are? Please press *6 to unmute yourself. Is that Fred Brown again? Did you get kicked off?
Yeah, hi,
Yes.
it's Dave. It's Dave Johnson.
Dave Johnson. Okay, hi Dave.
Hi, Dave.
Hi there.
So-
Thank you.
So what we have is I have a statement, James had a statement, he just mentioned a fence, okay?
What might you think, Ann, would be a good possible solution?
Well, I'm gonna hold on and hold off rather until I make my final statement, when we get done addressing all the different issues. So I'm not gonna go step by step. I'm gonna take in all of the information, and then when I decide at the very end of this session how I'm gonna vote, I will include that in my statement.
So the issue here is that conditions that we need to put, if in fact if we approve this, all right, the conditions should be something that we all agree on, all right? Just because we agree on this particular condition doesn't necessarily mean that we're gonna vote to approve the application.
No, but we're trying to, all I'm trying to do is address major issues
Right, I
that
know,
kept
that's,
popping up throughout our meetings and discussions and inputs and everything else.
so do we need something more than what I wrote, or do we need something
We
less?
we may, how about that? We may. We have to see.
Well, at some
Because we
point,
haven't even, since we haven't voted on anything, we may need something more. We shall see.
well, we're gonna have to at some point make a decision, all right?
I suggest we do this after the vote.
What?
There's no point going through these if the vote's nay.
But I don't know how to vote unless I've
That's right.
heard these
Right,
things.
okay,
I
fine.
agree with James. I think
Fine,
we should
so
go
we'll
with-
move on to the next topic. The next topic you had is down pointed full cutoff lighting.
Yes, this has come up a bunch of times. It's a big bugaboo of mine. I've heard people complain about possible light trespass or light pollution. Hate them both. I think that if we were to even consider saying yes, we'd have to have that stipulated because I think it's a valid criticism that has been brought up multiple times. It's an issue that I think needs to be addressed.
It's already in the application.
It's already in the application, and basically, I addressed that one as well, and my answer was, no lighting will be visible from outside of the fence perimeter within the property.
I understand,
That's
but
there's
that's-
no light. The lighting that they have is all gonna be, along the fence and along the building, is gonna be infrared lighting, okay, so that if somebody crosses over into the area, that they'll be able to track them. You won't see it because infrared light is not visible.
I understand that, but yes, I'm sorry. Ann.
Thank you. Would there be lights inside the fence or will there be lights outside the fence?
No, there are no lights outside, there are no lights on their property, right? I mean, the only lighting that potentially you could think about would be, and this would be for personal safety, is to have walkway lighting, all right, that would be downward lighting, which is what you're suggesting, along the walkways and maybe along the parking areas. That's it. Nothing, we're not, unlike, remember when we approved the lighting for 2727 Jacobs Ladder Road, okay, we ran into exactly the same issue. And we actually put stipulation in there as to what kind of lighting, because they had light poles.
I
right?
remember.
And that light pole, and none of the light was allowed to it was all downward lighting, and none could be outside of the perimeter of the property that they own.
I understand. Just for 30 seconds.
Yep.
Old amateur astronomer, our astronomy site way out on the North Fork of Long Island.
Yep.
We had to get a town ordinance.
Yep.
You had to be, unless you downward pointing means one thing.
Right.
Full cutoff means something else.
Sure.
You can have one without the other. Unless you have full cutoff,
Yeah.
downward pointing don't help much. That's the reason I'm being a jerk on this little point here. Because it
You're not
turned
being a
out that unless you wrote it very specifically,
Yeah.
you could have downward pointing lights that people can see from a long way away, unless you have them full cutoff, where they're in a box and the only light goes down.
Fine, that's, if
That's
we
it.
want to specify, as I said, we already dealt with that issue.
Yes.
All right, as a matter of fact, at one time, there were people in the community that suggested that we have a dark sky bylaw. Well, dark skies would be a general bylaw, not a zoning bylaw, okay? And the town of Becket has never adopted a dark skies bylaw, okay? It's not it's not the purview of the planning board, but we did deal with the issue because at 2727 Jacobs Ladder Road, there were people who lived in the immediate area who were concerned about the things that you just mentioned. So we can put a stipulation in there that that the lighting is basically downward cast. It does not,
Which is what it says in the application.
Right, it says it right in the app.
Downward directional shielded to prevent overflow.
Which means outside of the.
The only words I want the word full cutoff, because there's a very
Fine,
specific.
Fine, we can put that in there, all right?
Yes, I would not think that it was a good idea to leave it without the exact language.
I just have a question.
Sure.
There's something called motion sensor lights. Are these lights going to be motion sensor?
Where they can if you want them to be, okay?
Because if they are motion censored, then any strong wind, which I have experienced on my driveway and on my back deck, could set them off.
Can set them up, yes.
Yeah, but if they're full cutoff lights, which is what you described, and you can even limit the candle power, okay, which is what we did on the 2727 Jacobs Ladder Road project, okay? So, we can use those same limitations, and if you want to make them, motion censored, you just have to, and we did that because you don't want to, you can set the motion sensor so that a chipmunk running across the yard isn't going to set it off, okay? But a person walking out of the facility, the lights will come on and then go on, they'll come on briefly and then they'll be out, okay? Just so that the person doesn't trip, going across the snow-covered ground, okay,
Right.
with ice on it.
My fourth point.
Yeah.
Have to do with something that we were batting around like crazy, which is people were like, there was this bizarre situation where you've got the property that's
Right.
rented,
Yeah.
and then this easement for the extra parking spaces.
Sure.
And people were very upset about that. I don't understand why we could not say all the things that are on the facility have to be on property rented by the owners. To get rid of this, it's an easement, it's a this, it's a that, it's not that much room. They could prorate it, add, however many 100 square feet that they need for those extra parking spaces and just call it in.
It's not, well, first of all, you didn't look at the plan, and I can show you the plan, okay? The area is much larger than the parking spaces. It actually, because when they started to look at the property itself, there was areas that they needed for stormwater runoff, okay? And in order to do that, they needed more footage on the right-hand side. An easement is a legal document, okay? It runs with the land, okay? People have easements all the time. People have water easements. People have easements to get across somebody's property to go somewhere else. People have easements because somebody built something out, or needed to build something like a septic system, and they didn't have the room, so they got an easement from the neighbor. The only way that easement can be it runs with the land and it runs with the property and it runs forever. The only way you can get rid of that easement is to buy somebody out. okay? And obviously, in this case, they need the easement because the property, because of the layout of the property, and the applicant and the abutter, who owns that property, and owns, way more property, but just said, what we'll do is we'll give you an easement on this particular piece of property so that you can park your cars there. It goes, if it's approved, okay, and what I wrote on that is, let's see, the easement is negotiated with the abutter regarding parking and stormwater runoff control. Must be finalized and submitted to the Berkshire Middle District Registry of Deeds before any construction is initiated. So, that's a legal document. It basically adds that land to this particular facility. It's unfortunately still controlled. What happens is on an easement, right, is you have limited rights. Okay, I'll give you another example. In Sherwood Forest, when you drive by the entrance to Wells Road, on the right-hand side, there are mailboxes, and just beyond the mailboxes, there is a Verizon shelter. And that shelter basically had the DSL, had all the connections for Sherwood Forest and some of the surrounding area, okay? When the former owners, going back about 30 years, when Verizon came in and wanted to put that shelter up, they had to get an easement, okay? They got an easement from the property owner that owned that particular piece of land. That easement is there forever as long as Verizon owns it. It's only the size of the shelter, okay? But it actually is on somebody's property, okay? And it's because they couldn't buy it, okay? So, the person at the time basically worked out a sweet deal with Verizon. Verizon put the shed up. It doesn't really impact anybody else in the neighborhood. And it's going to be there until Verizon no longer needs it. What?
I'm not a lawyer,
What?
but I'm curious, can you sell your property if there's an easement?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can. It happens all the time.
Yeah,
Okay.
but let me finish.
Yeah.
But if there was a situation in my neighborhood, that somebody wanted to get access for the internet,
Yeah.
rather than put poles up on
Sure.
a long driveway
Yeah.
to attach to somebody else's property that had poles.
Yep.
And that would create an easement on the second property, so that the owner of the second property would be, now again, I'm not clear on this, would be diminished in their ability to sell the property. And same for the other, property owner number one. The easements are a tricky thing.
Well, they're not really tricky. I mean, when the property comes up for sale, if you happen to have a good real estate broker or you happen to have a good lawyer, I wouldn't sell any property. I wouldn't buy or sell any property without going through a lawyer. I don't trust real estate brokers. Right? The fact of the matter is that they do a deed search. When they do the deed search, they reveal all of the easements and what they are. And then it's up to you as to whether you want to buy the property with that easement or not, okay?
Right, so it diminishes your ability.
Well, it doesn't really
to sell your property if the other person
in a way it does,
won't buy your property if there's an easement on it.
in a way it does and it doesn't, okay?
Well, that to me, that's the, the people who own that land
Right, they
up
own
there, that's their business. I'm just concerned, I'm just concerned about the issue of, would it be better for everybody if everybody knew that all the facilities were on that set piece of property that is, at least, and from what I've been told from all these meetings, they have a kind of rent to purchase agreement going.
Well, they have a rent to purchase agreement, and I don't know what their ultimate plan would be. That if they're, I'm assuming that if they're successful, they will purchase the property. They will probably purchase the easement too. All right.
Howard's trying to say.
Howard?
Howard's trying to say something. He's trying
Howard,
to
go ahead.
It's my understanding, easement travels with the property. It doesn't travel with the owner.
Right.
So if the owner transfers hands, the easement stays with the new owner. It's like
That's what I would
buy a
think.
piece, it's like if you buy a piece of rental property and there's somebody already in there, the more the tenant has a right to stay there until their lease expires. Same kind of deal here.
Right.
Okay, that's number one. Number two, there's typo, just FYI, Bob, on I, where it says, second line, says, must be finalized and submitted to the Berkshire Middle District Registry of Deeds before any construction. It says end. The D should be a Y.
Oh, okay, well, I see the typo when I put that together, okay?
All right, just felt I'd probably bring it to your attention, but the easement's not a big deal on this.
Okay.
Whether it's a technicality, but it's not a big deal. Whether they buy it or they lease it or they rent it. If it's a lease, that's an easement. If it's an easement that's recorded with the registry, it's solid.
Oh, good.
It's absolutely solid. You know, we have easements, we have plenty of easements in Sherwood Forest, and they have easements over there in, what's that, Shaw Pond, okay? Shaw Pond, the lots are so small that they have as many as 10 houses connected up, all right, to one water source. In Sherwood Forest, the Sherwood Shop, when it was put in, that's a public water supply. It had 5 houses, in addition to the Sherwood Shop, that have an easement on that property. We had one in the back of Sherwood Forest, where there was a large piece of land. They had a well on it, and there was an easement to a smaller house on a quarter-acre lot. The easement went, like Howard said, it goes with the property, right? The person.
James, are you comfortable with that? You ready to move on to the next one?
I'm comfortable with it, but I did want it addressed because it's come up multiple times and we've had multiple arguments about it.
Well, if it's a recorded, if it's a recorded easement, it should be a non-issue.
Okay, just wanted. 5 is of course very difficult issue. Do we tighten the odor emissions rules to make fewer? These were the things that I saw that we could change, which were either fewer complaints, reduced time to do testing. From what I saw from the community host agreement, we had wiggle room in both of those directions. If we wanted to add stipulations to a possible special permit, and I wanted to put that out there because it's another thing that's come up repeatedly, and we haven't reached any kind of clarity on it.
Well, we haven't reached clarity because no one's willing to basically make a decision on any of these things. Okay, you know, we're discussing everything that you've discussed so far, and we haven't come to an agreement on whether we think that these things should. We're saying, okay, what we'll do is we'll vote on it, and then if it passes, then we're going to come back and revisit these things. Okay, you know, and come up with some language. All right, as far as the facility is concerned, yes, a lot changed. Okay, originally they were doing an outdoor grow. All right, they're no longer doing an outdoor grow. This is now a completely enclosed indoor grow. And you know, I can bring up, you know, there were articles on similar type things. There were articles on what happened in North Adams, okay? And the North Adams board the planning board went through, here, you wanna take a look at this, Sam?
Are you suggesting any particular language, James?
Well, one of the things I think people were upset about that I heard, maybe people heard different, was that it would take multiple complaints to launch an investigation. And we could perhaps say that if a local person had an issue, that would trigger the test. That would trigger a test. And that might be perceived as being a better solution than 5 people in 2 weeks, which I think is the deal right now in the community host agreement.
I agree with that. I think that that's a ridiculous standard.
I just felt that I wasn't gonna make any judgments on it. I just felt that perhaps from all the input we took, that would be helpful. You know, that might be like, okay, that sounds more reasonable. If a person, pardon me, wants to, you know, ask for a test, they can get a test. You know,
I'd be inclined to move in that direction, except for one exception. Suppose you have one person who decides they just want to complain every day and it becomes a form of harassment. How do you stop that?
you might be able to put a stipulation for how a test is good for 3 days or 5 days or something like that, where it would be like, okay, somebody says they've got a complaint, we're gonna have an objective test, the test is run, test comes back negative, you can't just endlessly do it, you have to wait a few days. If there's another issue, someone could bring it forward. I understand that it, you know, we don't wanna set anybody up to be just badgered, but we also wanna set it up so that if people have a legitimate problem, they've got a quick, objective remedy to the problem. Take a look, do the test. Yes, Ed?
Discussed that ad nauseum and came up with the idea that the facility would have on site this odor mitigation device run by, and we didn't decide on this, but it was a suggestion. A device that would register the odors right there on site or maybe very close to the site and determine immediately whether it exceeded a level of acceptability.
All right, can we stop for a minute? Jesse's got somebody.
I have someone on the telephone ending in 3862. Could you identify yourself? Please hit *6 to unmute. Someone at telephone just admitted ending in 3862. Could you let me know who you are, please? If you hit *6, that will unmute you.
All right, I want to bring something else to your attention. This is all brand new. This is all stuff that just happened in the last couple of days. The planning board in North Adams basically approved an outdoor grow facility, okay? Not an indoor grow. There is a big difference between the two, okay? Originally, these guys set it out as an outdoor grow, and then when they couldn't get what they wanted, they went to an indoor grow. So you have to be, you know, and that was one of the reasons that, you know, these odors can travel. Okay, so this is a quote from the mayor, okay? No, Diane Parsons said of Highland Avenue that during the open forum, the abutters within 300 feet were notified of the hearing, but her research found that smells from cannabis can spread more than 1,500 feet. Okay, the closest property line, okay, for an abutter that, you know, might be within the 1,500 feet, right? That's it. It's 1,500 feet away. Okay, the closest, and they're not abutters. They're not even abutters to abutters.
And that was for an outdoor grow.
And that was for an outdoor grow.
Oh,
This is for an indoor grow, and basically, this is what I wrote. The applicant has to agree to submit plans to the Board of Health for compliance. Well, no, that's in particular, Tetra Hydro has agreed to install the latest and most efficient state-of-the-art odor control equipment available in the marketplace to monitor odor emissions through the host community agreement previously approved by the Becket Select Board. So, you can argue, why they put that in there. The facility that they're going to have basically is a negative, negative atmosphere facility. So the leakage, they're going to have high carbon filters, the state of the art filters. They already agreed to do that, right? There really isn't going to be much leakage, like you had with the outdoor grow, where you have no control. You only can plant windbreaks and things of that nature.
I understand. That doesn't change the fact that there should be a rational mechanism for people to request an objective test. That's all. Not that people could just close everything down because they're upset or they don't like it or whatever.
Yeah.
But people should have the right, I think, so I see it, to make a request that can be in a more that can be answered in a more timely manner than we need 5 people and we need 2 weeks. That doesn't seem adequate from my perspective. I don't think, and since we have the power to do something about that, I think it would be wise, if we're going to approve something like this, to do so.
Well, that's a possibility. I mean, we certainly could add a stipulation. I mean, what you said was that, the same person repeatedly making a request, or people within, so I do it, and then Al happens to be my next door neighbor, so I get my request in, then he does it, and then his next door neighbor, he does it, is that, getting back to, and then like you said, if we do this and then we wait 3 days, we can do it all over again. At what point does that become harassment?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure,
Okay.
well, Ann's had her hand raised, so let.
Oh, sorry, Ann, go ahead.
Okay, but again, the device that was talked about that could measure right then and there, and the odor emission have a hard set standard, that maybe one day there would be no odor floating out. The next day there could be a change of wind and there would be an odor floating out.
There's no.
Let me finish.
There's no odor.
You keep interrupting.
It's fine, go right ahead.
Don't interrupt me.
Go right ahead, go right ahead.
So I think in agreement, basically, with your line of thinking, that there should be a hard and fast standard of measurement of these odors, so that you would avoid the kind of scenario that you are thinking about, where you have a crank complainer, and without necessarily any hard and fast evidence to back up the complaint. So we should include some kind of specific device with a specific way it is measured, with that measurement being open and transparent to the town, to be able to avoid or address the kind of issues that you just brought up.
The town already agreed, and they've already, and the applicant have already agreed when purchasing the equipment. They've already done that.
But it's not there, and we would have to add that specifically into.
If you want to add in the type of equipment, I have no problem with adding in the equipment, okay? That's already been stipulated, okay? It's already been agreed to. They've already agreed to test, and I think they came to a rational understanding that, basically 5 tests. I mean, it could have been, they could have said 100 tests. They could have said 1 test, okay? Why they arrived at 5 is beyond me, okay? I don't even know why they were discussing that, because personally, I don't think that should have been in the host community agreement. But that's where it is, okay? And it was approved, and all of the complainants that were there that have been complaining to us about this basically have said, okay, fine, now, we didn't get what we wanted with the select board, so what we want to do is we want you guys to go even further, okay? And I don't see the need to do that, all right?
Okay, I have to counter that.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I was there at the meetings, okay?
You just did it.
Okay,
I just said I was there at the
You
meetings, that's
just
all I said, go ahead.
interrupted me.
Go.
Okay.
You got the floor.
I think enforcement is the key here.
Yep.
And how all of even if they have the equipment and they agree to do all of this, we need some way to enforce it, written down as a standard of the process, to acknowledge, not acknowledge, to evaluate the level of odor. And secondly, as far as you keep talking about the fact, and I'll agree with you, that the host agreement did not it was outside of their purview to include that stipulation in the host agreement. And although the host agreement is still legally sound because there's a severability clause, so that no matter what we say, even if it doesn't hold water, so what? We can put in our own standard, whether or not it was in the
What
host agreement.
standard are you proposing?
From what I've been talking about now, so that there would be enforcement, that would be transparent, and a little bit more specifics to.
There already is an enforcement officer. Okay, the enforcement officer is the building inspector. He is the code enforcer for all statutes. Okay, and so, the equipment, they didn't specify it. We can say that the equipment will be under the control of the zoning enforcement officer in the town. And he will be the one that will handle all of it. Okay, it's not gonna be the planning board. The planning board doesn't have to
Howard's
respond.
shaking his hand.
Well, we'll get to Howard in a
I
minute,
just wanted to
okay?
let you know.
So,
No, but just, yes, that's true. The building inspector, which by the way, we have a new one, and we also have Gary, don't we, as an assistant?
well, Gary Danko, yes, we have Gary Danko as an assistant,
The
but,
new building inspector started.
right, the new building inspector has started, he's part-time,
Yeah,
he'll be here
right,
3
I know
days a
that.
week, and we'll have to have a discussion with him. But, the statute is very clear on what the responsibilities are, and it's also in our zoning bylaws. If you go to section 9, right, it tells you exactly, it's specified already right there. I don't know what we need to do any more than that, okay?
Well, we do if people bring up, I'm sorry.
They go to the building inspector, the building inspector basically takes the complaint, and then using the equipment that was provided to the town, right, we can say that, it becomes his responsibility, okay? Sometimes equipment like this, it's like the breathalyzer tests with the state police, okay? The equipment has to be constantly calibrated, it has to be this, it has to be that. I hope it works just fine, okay? But, there's no guarantees that it will, and there's no guarantees it'll even hold up in court later on. Let's hear from Howard. Howard's got his hand up, and
All right, but I have to come back.
you will come back, Keith,
okay,
okay?
now this is a response to Ann and James. What I'm hearing them saying, and I might be wrong, correct me where I go awry, is they're looking for some kind of objective measurement that there might be, and I'll give you an analogy. In dentistry, we were required to submit tests for our sterilizer every week. And if our sterilizer strip failed, we had to close that sterilizer down until it was repaired, and we got a clean test going forward in order to use that sterilizer. I think what they're looking for is an objective measuring tool, where if it goes above a certain, whatever the objective number would be, then they'd be required to do something about it. It wouldn't require anybody to complain. It would automatically set off that alarm. Kind of like I said, like the sterilizer strips that we used in sterilizing our equipment. Is that right, Ann and James?
Yes, and I just had this weird thought, not that I could make an analogy here exactly, but if you go to the town beach, there are porta potties there, and when you go into them, there's a list of the dates of inspection for of that to make sure that this meets the Board of Health standards, or otherwise the whole place can get shut down. So what I am thinking, I agree with you, Howard, that as an objective standard, and also would have to be a list of as often as possible that we could decide how often that odor device is used, time of day, how many times during the week, that kind of thing would be, I think, a way of ensuring that any odor that would be emanating would be taken care of immediately.
Well, we do the same thing with our beaches. We're required by law to check for E. coli once a week. And if it exceeds a certain amount, we have to close the beach down. It'd be something similar to that, I would think.
Yes, that is kind of what I would think that is important. So I don't know what other people think of.
No,
James,
look,
like-
you kind of know how I think. I think that there's got to be some kind of mechanism that, I think that the threshold that was established in the community host agreement is, from my perspective, inadequate. That is how I see it.
And we want to, well, we can include our feelings about that in our final vote. Moving on to the next.
Okay.
You know,
But I think if we
bottom
could,
line is that it's never gonna be the planning board that's gonna be the ultimate arbiter in this, okay? It's gonna be the zoning enforcement officer, and whatever standards that machine has, and when he gets called out, okay, you know, are you going to have, if somebody calls out in mid-December, all right? Well, again, granted, this is an indoor facility, so you probably could have odors because they might have multiple crops growing, you know, rather than an outdoor facility where the crops were only growing, you know, during the growing season, and then, you know, when they flagged the flowering season in the end of September and early October, that's when you'd get the smell. I mean, you wouldn't be monitoring for smell in May or April, okay? You know, and again, I think those standards have to be, you know, the fact that they have to test, and the fact that they have to, there are some minimum standards that were put out there, that when people call in, okay, you with five people calling in, it eliminates the crank call coming in, and then, like you said, James, you know, you could have the same person calling every single day. Okay, what do you do with that? You have to run out and do that. You know, are we going to be that kind of, you know, particular with the monitoring? Okay, you know, it's an indoor grow versus an outdoor grow. Totally different animal. I'm not saying that no to monitoring. I'm just saying that, you know, what they came up with certainly sounded adequate to me. All right.
So you can say that in your decision. So let's.
Oh,
move on.
Okay, one of the interesting things that I thought of when I was sitting down, how little time anybody at all has spent on the issue of decommissioning or site restoration.
Well, you know, can I speak to your decommissioning? Okay, we certainly had, you know, certain requirements for things like cell towers. Okay, you know, a cell tower, once it's erected, really isn't going to serve, you know, purpose after it's no longer useful. All right, we have one in town. All right, Ken Smith. All right, we've heard Ken Smith's name. Okay, he happens to have a cell tower on his property. All right, it's not functional. It's been there for years. Okay, it's an eyesore. Okay, if it, you know, I drive down the Mass Pike. I see it all the time. I say, what's that thing doing there? I know it doesn't work. Okay, you know, why wasn't it decommissioned? In this case, the building is a greenhouse. Okay. Decommissioning a greenhouse or selling the property, if you sold it to someone else who was going to grow another product inside a greenhouse, it doesn't seem, you know, the building could be converted to grow tomatoes, they could grow flowers, they could grow any kind of other agricultural product. So decommissioning it and restoring the land back doesn't seem to make sense to me, because the building has the possibility of having multiple uses, especially as a greenhouse. Okay, and that whole area is a farming area. You know, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. if you get around to Quarry Road, okay, there are multiple tree farms there that have been harvested, you know, they only get harvested once every 40 years. There's a horse farm there. There's a gravel pit there, okay, that's on the property just north of this, okay, which nobody knows about it. I didn't know about it until I actually started doing some of the research that I'm not supposed to do, okay. Here's a picture of the map. I happen to be doing a project for public water supplies. These are all the public water supplies in the town of Becket, okay? And it just so happened that, you know, that corner of Becket, that where we're talking about, it's got no public water supplies. Here, you can take a look at it, okay?
Decommissioning addressed it all in the CCC, you know?
Huh?
I just-
Decommissioning it addressed at all in the CCC that you're aware of.
No, I mean, you know, decommissioning,
Doesn't seem to be a
as I said,
town.
when we wrote the bylaws for cell towers, when we wrote the bylaws for a couple of other things, we were very, very particular about putting in
And solar.
decommissioning. And solar,
So,
okay?
yeah, we
Yeah,
did
because-
that,
because it-
absolutely.
Because once that solar farm is done with, okay, you know, it's gonna be an eyesore because the technology in 25 years is gonna change. And whether they decide they wanna continue with the array and do something else with that array, or whether they wanna just decommit, if they walk away, okay, then there's no recourse. This one is totally different. It's basically an agricultural greenhouse. And I don't see any reason to have it torn down, all right?
Can this license that they're acquired, can this be sold or transferred, or does it stay with the company?
The license stays with the company, okay, when and if this permit, you know, they stop making money, then yeah, they have a building on the site which has some value, okay? As I said, you know, it can be sold, okay?
But it can't be used but if they sell it to, let's say they sell it to me to grow,
Right.
grow.
Well,
Unless they get another license.
they'd have to get another license.
All right, so to James's question is if they leave, if they sell it or they leave, then they can no longer, the next company can no longer, the next owner can no longer.
And another company could come in and buy that property and decide, you know, in 25 years or 10 years or whatever, they could come along. If there's a license that's available within the town and they want to move into that facility, they would have to go through the whole process that we went through right now.
Right, but they couldn't just do it without going through the process.
Unless they converted it to hemp.
Well, they could convert it to hemp and they could grow hemp inside because hemp is an agricultural product that's not controlled by our bylaws at all.
Or any.
Or any
All right.
bylaws, okay?
All right, so that seems to answer James' question.
Okay, I just wanted to bring it up because I thought it might be an issue.
Okay.
The last one is a minor but not insignificant in that when I saw the revised plans, it was pointed out by someone who was making the same point. I noticed also the number of plantings in the front had been radically reduced. And I thought that was a very bad idea. And
You're talking about the trees? What are you talking about?
yes, because when we got the last plan,
Yeah.
it only called for 6 trees along the whole frontage.
Well, it was even more than that, but you're right.
No, it was because it had been 12, and then suddenly it was
Okay.
6.
All right.
And it bothered me enough to, it bothered me when I saw it, someone brought it up, so I wasn't the only one who noticed. That seemed to me inadequate, and I thought that it might be we've done it before where we said there has to be a certain amount of plantings here. It should cover the space. There should be trees that are native to this area, and then we're done. But I thought that that's something worth bringing up because again, it's a quality of life neighborhood issue that to my mind has legitimacy. I wanna drive past this place and I want it to look as much like the rest of this space as possible.
Okay, well,
But do you want to specify an objective number, James?
Well, the original
we've got the
plan,
plan right here,
had-
okay? It's right there.
right,
All right.
the original had 12, it was reduced to 6, that seemed inadequate.
No, I don't think it was
Yeah.
reduced to 6.
3, 6, 9, 12, 14.
There's 14, on the plan, it's 14. I don't know what plan you're looking at, but that's the most current plan right there.
I think maybe what you're referring to, there's none showing in the plan in front of the.
In front of the facility, okay, so, that, yes, I agree with you, Jim, okay, as a matter of fact, I, in my statement.
It was in front of the facility, yeah, it was.
Yeah, and they're not gonna be in front of the fence, okay, because the fence is, stipulated as to where it's gotta be. So it's actually gonna be behind the fence, but if they use evergreens, okay, they plant them along there, within a very short period of time, those trees will probably, not hide the fence, but they certainly grow taller than probably the building, okay, even if you're using things like, arborvitaes, okay? I happen to plant arborvitaes up along the road, in front of my house, and you can't see my house. You cannot see it at all, okay? Now, that's kind of counter to another regulation that we have, which basically says that you're not supposed to do what I did 30 years ago, which was to make a hedge that is taller than a fence, which is limited to be 6 feet tall. So it's a kind of a conundrum, isn't it?
Well, if you would avoid the hedge issue, if you planted actual spruce trees.
Well, I not only that, okay, in one section of my house, I planted what I told you was arborvitaes. And then further down, because I believe in mixed species, I put hemlocks, okay? So, which do basically the same thing. Hemlocks, if they're controlled, grow very dense. You can't see through them, okay? But the question is why now am I in violation of the ordinance that basically says I can't have a hedge that exceeds, and so, yeah, I mean, I certainly agree with you. I would rather, not only would I want them to plant the trees up along that area that's vacant right now.
Right,
I think they
yes.
could very easily do that. We could stipulate that. But all these other areas that were logged out, okay, I would strongly suggest that they plant, and they don't have to be big, okay, but any area that they're allowed to plant in that was basically
Clear cut.
okay, and it didn't really clear cut. It was all selective cutting done under the auspices of a trained arborist who came in and basically, so when the former owner, all right, well, actually the current owner, okay, Adrian and Josh, they actually had them come in, and trees were selected and trees were left in certain areas. And in wetlands, the trees were absolutely untouchable, okay? And so there's plenty of cover there. It's just a matter of there are some places where they could actually probably plant trees that in 5 or 10 years would be would serve as a windbreak, would serve to purify the air, especially if they use conifers. Okay, conifers and evergreens, tend to have a mitigating effect on odors. Okay, so that's what I wrote in my. That's what I plan to write in my decision.
Yeah, because I pointed out that, that was it, to mitigate any noise or odors.
Right.
It's not only just an aesthetic thing that I think
Right.
people have a right to ask for, that, it looks more like it used to than it doesn't, but also.
Alberta spruce is another option.
Yeah, spruces, any of those, but you see, what we're talking about is we're talking about evergreens, okay? We're talking about conifers, okay?
Right.
They're all in the, there are plenty of others. There are some conifers, because there are a couple of species that actually lose their needles, all right, in the wintertime. just like deciduous trees, okay? Which is kind of unusual because they're in a, they're in the conifer family.
We have them on Long Island.
Right,
It was
yeah,
weird.
they're
They
everywhere.
carpet the ground in the
Right.
fall.
Yeah. So, that's something that I certainly would, if I voted to approve this, I would want to see something done in that area. So is there anything else that you had? I mean, we've gone through your list.
No, I hope that it was, I just wanted to try and bring up some things that were, I thought, very pertinent.
Okay. Well, I brought up some additional things, all right? And I don't have the list to hand out to you. One is hours of operation, all right? And basically what I said is that the hours of operation, if this is approved, should be Sundays through Saturday, 6 to 8 p.m. with a 24-hour security guard, which is what they've already agreed to. All right. They have to have somebody there 7 days a week. I mean, you can't, when you're growing plants, there's somebody got to be inside. One of the things that we stipulated when we wrote the regulation was that there would all be off-street parking. We certainly don't want to have any on-street parking in front of this facility, and the town has already decided that both sides of that street are no parking. All right. If the quarry and the new owners of the quarry decide that they want to have parking, well, they'll have to increase their parking area at the facility because there's no place for them to park outside on the street, and that was done at the behest of the community, the people that lives there. All right. So that's one thing. Anybody want to discuss that any further? Okay.
What are the hours that are in the agreement?
I don't know. Did you take a look? I think I looked in, and I think that's in what we agreed to.
So are they different than what you're proposing?
No. I think it's exactly what they proposed. Okay. No lighting. I already talked about no lighting being visible. Appropriate evergreen landscaping will be established along Forward Road between the fence and the greenhouse to reduce visibility of the greenhouse structures. All right, the indoor grow facility will have the highest quality industrial odor control carbon filters. The 6-foot fence I already mentioned. Let me keep going here. During the summer months from May to September 30th, Tetrahydra AgTech LLC will employ Becket police officers in paid police patrol and paid police control capacity. They've already agreed to that. Okay, but that needs to be stipulated, because 2 years from now or a year from now, they could say, well, there's no need for the patrol. Okay, if they wanted to change that, they'd have to come back before the planning board to change it.
You have to say if available.
Well, what do you mean it's available? All right,
Maybe
the police chief, that's an agreement that was made between the police chief and the.
Oh, okay.
This is not. These are off-duty officers who are on paid detail. Okay.
But they have to be available.
Well, there are plenty of off-duty police officers looking for work. All right, we have police officers from a whole bunch of communities in town working details, and because our own police officers are too busy. So that
My only point is that the ones in Becket may not be available.
it doesn't have to be. Okay, well then then I can just take out the word Becket.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. Areas that have been previously harvested and not needed for cultivation, for the cultivation facility will be planted with USDA windbreak plant species for, among other things, odor management. Okay. Whoops, sorry about that. All right. And let's see. Oh, the easement negotiated with the abutters regarding the parking and stormwater runoff control must be finalized and submitted. I already said this. Submitted to the Berkshire Middle District Registry of Deeds before any construction is initiated. Okay, and there was one other. The special permit is contingent upon Conservation Commission and the Board of Health compliance. Not approval, compliance. All right, if they're in compliance with whatever they have, whatever regulations they have, And it's very specific. I mean, you know, the Conservation Commission deals with one set of rules.
Of course.
The Board of Health deals with another set of rules, okay? You know, they don't overlap, all right? And so, you know, if their permit were approved, then they would have to meet those requirements before they could begin anything with this plan. So that's, you know, I also wrote 15 pages. Right? Oh yeah, you think, okay, I've got stuff in here that basically talks about screening, you know, stuff I've already got the following, let's see, members of the planning board shall have the right to enter at reasonable times. I don't know why I put that in there because I don't know whether we're gonna be doing that. Right, we have pre-construction rules, I have post-construction rules.
My question is,
What?
are we gonna all see that and?
Well, it's up to, you know, I can go, well, it's what somebody does when somebody wants to thoroughly analyze what needs to be done with this project.
And that's why we have to
Okay.
read it.
Well, you don't have to read it, these are my notes, okay, I didn't say that I'm making this part of the plan, okay?
Oh, okay.
This is, you know, I just telling you that what, you know, this is all the stuff that I did. If you want to read it, or you want me to read it, I can read it into the record, okay? And I have as attachments, you know, sections from the zoning statute, section 11, section 17, and other things. So, you know, it was something that, you know, I could have sent out to you earlier, but, you know, this is the place where it should be,
Yes.
you know, officially discussed if we're gonna discuss it. So that's, I don't know where else somebody wants to go with this, okay?
Dan, did you have some inquiries?
I have some statements. Okay. Thank you. First of all.
Oh, can I wanted to, Ann already showed the map. I just want to show, this is the property, and you'll find these 3 pink spots that are kind of unusual. Look at the legend.
It's a little hard to read. Pink spots is commercial.
Yeah, it's commercial.
Oh, okay. This is a water supply protection area.
Yeah, this is from the DEP, and guess where one of them is?
I don't know. I'm reading it.
All right, well, I'll point it out to you, okay? This is the entrance to Skyline Ridge. This is in Skyline Ridge.
Okay.
Yeah, there's commercial areas that are designated already, in areas that, you see that Al? Right there, and right there, and right there, okay? The Colleen's property, which is just north of us, you know, is designated as a commercial operation. I can't say how recent that is, but it certainly showed up on the DEP map. It's far enough away from the facility, but it's right there and smack in the middle of, you know, so when people say this is all rural, residential, agricultural, et cetera, okay, gee, interestingly enough, it showed up that there's commercial activity there, or was, or maybe still designated, all right? As a matter of fact, when I dug deeper, okay, I found out that they got approval from the zoning board of appeals, and Bill Oliverto was one of the people who approved it. So just so that you know, okay, well, you know, I mean, some people were saying there's no commercial property, okay, that this is an industrial, you know, there were signs placed all over the place that they didn't want industrial cannabis, all right?
Okay.
Well,
But these are water sources, it's not growing any.
oh, this is an industrial facility. This is an industrial facility. That's our commercial facility.
So
Okay.
what is it? You have a name?
Commercial. Well, I just told you who they are, where they're located.
Yeah, but who's using it?
Well, I don't know. I drive by it. I mean, that's that brown building right up, just when you go up on Bonnie Rig Hill Road and you take a left onto Quarry Road, There's a brown building right there, and that's commercial.
Do they have?
I don't know what they do in there, okay?
We should know, shouldn't we?
Well, no, because they got a permit.
It's not the planning board's decision.
Not a planning board
Just the
decision.
General knowledge in our town, which is we know.
Well, do you know of every single special permit that was issued in the last
No, I don't.
25 years?
I count on you. Okay.
All right,
My
okay.
turn.
So now your turn.
My turn.
All right.
All right, I get back, I'm going back to our bylaws.
Yep.
To what's written in section 6.8.
Yep.
Number one, the second paragraph reads as follows, and that's quoting MGL 94G and medical use marijuana, whatever. MGL 941. The specific purpose of this section is to safeguard the built environment by permitting compliance with state law in a manner consistent with community and neighborhood concerns. My first statement.
Okay.
And I'm going to say that when I look at all of this,
Yeah.
use what is known as the reasonable man standard in law.
Yeah.
What would a reasonable man, common man, consider in evaluating the situation?
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to section 6.8.6, number 4.
Yeah.
In reviewing a special permit under this section, the special permit granting authority shall consider the impact of the proposal on the following. A, character of the neighborhood to include visual compatibility with surrounding uses. And what you just described as this fence with black plastic or whatever is not compatible with the cluster of homes that are all around this area, in my estimation and understanding. Okay, let us go further. Again, it is repeated under 6.8.8, indoor cultivation. Number 4A, character of the neighborhood to include visual compatibility with surrounding uses. And F, C, relationship to surrounding uses to avoid unnecessary exposure to minors is to be considered. And F, site design and other development-related site impacts. Other related sites would be the quarry right across the street. I'm going to deal with the emissions later. Okay, now. So we have in here a reference to the character of the neighborhood. Now, you just handed me this land court decision that gives them the right to cultivate on the East Leaf Farm.
Correct.
Very end,
I know.
very end said, in regards to plaintiff's claim of neighborhood character, plaintiff's final claim farm is broadly headed, the facility's inconsistency with the character of their neighborhood. The initial problem in evaluating the quality of the party's quote unquote neighborhood evidence is that the bylaw doesn't, and I am again emphasizing doesn't in so many words, require the planning board to evaluate site plans based on their consistency with the neighborhood or to gauge the overall effect of the proposed development upon the neighborhood. In other words, this does not include their standards does not include any reference within the bylaws to the character of the neighborhood. We have character of the neighborhood in our bylaws. That's number one.
Well, you have to define neighborhood, which is what we spent the whole, 2
Well,
hours or 3 hours on
you're
last
interrupting me
month.
again.
No, I'm just, sorry. Go ahead, you wanna talk? Talk.
Okay, we did not come to a solid agreement on what a neighborhood is. And I say again, the reasonable man would consider that area neighborhood. Now, you might disagree with me, but there's clusters of homes many, many homes in that area. And in prior evaluation of the Grow Boys facility, of the Johnson Street facility, Johnson Road, when people came forward saying this, similar concerns, those concerns were taken into account, and the select board listens very specifically, and even though we had all approved the Grow Boys facility, they did not go forward because there were, after the fact, not before the decision, after the fact, people came forward from the surrounding neighborhood and objected. And I think that set a precedent for us to do the same thing. Moving on. Let's see. The North Adams planners, okay, outdoor cannabis cultivation.
By the way, can I ask you what the result of that decision was?
That this was one of the points. That
No,
they
but
were-
what was the decision?
The decision was to go forward, absolutely.
And
But one of the points, I interrupted you again.
no, I didn't.
One
I
of
just
the-
asked you a question,
Well, I'm
okay?
not done. One of the points that they considered, the elements, was that the fact that the neighborhood, the character of the neighborhood was not mentioned at all in any of the documents set forth by the planning board or the town fathers. So that's that. Okay, now moving on to what you just referenced last time. North Adams planners, okay, outdoor cannabis cultivation. That was in an industrial zone that had other industrial facilities. An industrial zone, to my reasonable man, common man standard, has by definition odors that would not be found in a residential area. Noise that would not be found in a residential area. And again, I just want to say that when I visited with you, the Connecticut facility, there was odor outside. I even I even noted that the big circular fans that were outside needed oiling because they made squeaky noises. Now, why would we want to encourage a facility that could leak odors and that could make, and did make in that instance, noise from their fans? There is no way, once something is set up and constructed, for us to evaluate the amount of noise that's going to emanate from that structure. So that was something else. Let's see. And then as far as the barn nearby, which was kind of referenced in 6.8.8 4F, other development related site impacts. And there were questions we talked about whether it was used on a regular basis by children. And there was a lot of discussion about that. Under 9.4, site plan approval, 9.4.1. The purpose of this section is to protect the health, safety, convenience, and general welfare of the inhabitants of the town by providing for the approval of plans for uses and structures which may have impacts both within the site and in relation to adjacent properties and streets, on pedestrian, on vehicular traffic, public services and infrastructure, environmental, unique, and historic resources, abutting properties and community needs. And I would like to posit that the quarry, in the general common man, reasonable man standard, is a scenic, ecological, and historic site, which is extremely close to the front of this big building with its ugly fence, and not in the character of the neighborhood. Now, I'm giving you a copy of a of an article in the Berkshire
Excuse me, we
Magazine.
see you, Howard, you're next.
I just have a question. I have a question for Ann on
I'm
the
not
subject.
done, Howard.
She wants to
Wait.
finish her statement first.
Hold your
All
question.
right.
This is page 6 of the Berkshire Magazine Holiday 2021. You can pass it around. And it is stated that the trustees protect places in Massachusetts that are of interest for their scenic, historic, or ecological value. If we go forward, we would be opposing what is written in our own bylaw about protecting historic resources. I will also show you a picture of what the trustees do. If we go forward with this facility, I did some research too.
I know, well, that's good. I'm glad you did.
I looked at the Trustees of Reservations website, and one of the many things that they do are guided hikes for kids. They're not doing it right now, but they're going to be doing this, and they do it in every other, or almost every other of their properties. And I have pictures. Here's a picture of children on hikes. Here's an example of the picture on the website. Guided hikes for kids. So we would be, by allowing this facility to be built, going in opposition to what we already have in our bylaw. We would not be protecting the historic site as well as a family and children usage site. We would be creating a conflict in the future. Let's go forward. Also, I take exception to Tetra attorney's statement when he said that Tetra has, quote, bent over backwards to accommodate our concerns. Well, la-di-da. We have concerns that are written in our bylaws. Their application process left much to be desired. Their due diligence was extremely poor. And I personally have doubts that all of the things that we want to see from this organization would ever come to fruition. So we have to take that into consideration as well. I don't think that that was an appropriate statement. Bent over backwards when we already have this, and we have been extremely helpful to with this constantly changing plan. That to me leaves a lot to be desired and really reduces my confidence in this organization. So now we just said tonight, well, the building could be moved or you could make it smaller. That's another modification on the many modifications that have already come forward. Again, we have to consider the nature of the organization. Too many modifications. If they want to get all their ducks in order, they should get it all in order first and come back to us with specific plans 2 years from now. I think, let's see. Basically, that is it. As well as the issue with odors that I agreed with Howard, basically, who puts a very simple way to say it. I forget the exact wording, Howard, where we need some exact standards that are easily adhered to for the odor emanations.
All right, are you
Okay.
done? or-
I am done now. You
All right,
can-
'cause, well, Howard wants to, he's had his hand raised.
Well, no, as we discussed each of James's points one by one, I was trying to ask Ann a question on one of her other issues. And she wanted to complete her whole thing before she allowed any comment. And on the, I've been a member of Kay and I have been members of the trustees of reservations for years. So as direct abutters, I'm sure they've gotten notice of what's going on here. Have we gotten any letters from them commenting as to their opinion on this?
I believe that they chose to stay out of it. That's what I heard from
That's the word, and that's the word that I got, and it's just, you know, people saying that, you know, they wanted to remain neutral.
So then clearly they don't have any strong opinion, one way or the other, if they want to remain neutral.
I don't
They
think they
seem
want
to,
influence in a town and create any negative or blowback. It's when you're neutral in a contentious situation, new to the area, they're playing it safe, so to speak.
yeah, but they're not a new organization.
Neutrality as approval. You might, but I do not.
But I don't see it as approval, but I don't see it as an objection either. That's okay.
And I'm coming at it from the point, I don't know if they know our bylaws state what I just read. Do they know that? I do not know that they know that. And that they made their decision for neutrality based on knowledge or not knowledge.
Okay, that was all I had on that one.
All right, do you have anything to add, Howard? Is there something that you would like to,
I have something in particular regarding the quote unquote social, economic, or community needs which are served by the proposal.
yeah,
When it talks to employees, I think my screen just went blank. Item 34, where they say there'll be a maximum of 23 full-time equivalent employees working at the facility at any time. I don't see where in there it specifies that they it's a new industry in town. And I think there has to be something in there about recruitment and training of Becket residents to try to get as many Becket residents who want to be employed there. To say they're not, for them to say, well, we didn't get any qualified employees. It's from that are residents of Becket. I think that it should be incumbent upon them to recruit and train potential employees from Becket. And so I don't know how that could be worded in there, but I think that would be important to help in the economic needs. Any thought on that subject?
That sounds very wise.
all right, it's interesting to note that, Tetra Hydra AgTech, has, minorities, on its board, all right? And I don't know where I heard this, okay, or did, because we've discussed the possibility of opening this up to Becket residents, but, Becket, even though Becket has a number of people that might want to be employed in this, okay, many of them may not be, or some of them may not want to do it, some of them may not be qualified to do it. And, one of the things that we'd be looking for, and I saw this in some other towns, and it had on a different subject altogether, you would want to have, minority employees represented, in order to diversify the community. I mean, Becket is one of these communities that's approximately 94% white. Okay, but we can recruit people from places. If they can't find qualified people in Becket, then they're going to certainly have to look elsewhere, and they may have to go to Lee, and they may have to go to Pittsfield, and they may have to go to Westfield, and all of these places are within commuting distance if they can't find people in Becket. So I agree with you that if they should first look at residents within the town because these jobs, if the jobs do come from the discussions we've heard in the past, that they're going to be well-paying jobs. All right, I think that some people working in the town could double their income by seeking employment in this facility. From what I've heard about the wages that they're looking to pay for people to work in this facility. Plus they won't have to commute. Okay, that's one of the things. I have somebody that I know who actually commutes from Becket to Lee on a regular basis, and they're being paid $11 an hour. All right, the figures that I heard from Tetra Hydra were between $20 and $25. That's doubling their salary, and they don't have to commute, and they don't have to leave town to make that kind of a wage, which means that they can be, with their families more because they're.
So can we stipulate that in? Can we stipulate that in there somewhere? I mean.
Oh yeah, we can. I already put notes down that
Okay,
if this thing gets approved under special conditions, that we would agree to something like that. Right?
What are the qualifications? Someone like me, let's say, for example, I'm employable, although retired. I don't have any qualifications to be a whatever grower.
Well, I don't think, no, I mean, the thing is that these are entry-level jobs, okay? Like anything else, the company has to train their employees. If you put out, if you're recruiting and you specifically want a machinist, and you're limiting your pool, your recruiting pool, to just people who have machinery skills. In the town of Becket, when they've gone out and looked for people to work at the town hall, they were looking for someone to be the the highway superintendent in town. One of the requirements was that they be an engineer. Well, guess what? We've never hired an engineer, okay? And I don't think an engineer is going to come, a certified civil engineer is going to come work in the town of Becket as the highway superintendent. I don't think they get paid enough, okay? But that's, if you want to pay somebody, you get somebody that's qualified. Certainly, if you lower your expectations, then you're going to have to accept people that may not have the skills, and then you're going to have to find out ways to get them trained. Okay, these are entry level jobs. I mean, it's not, they're I assume they're going to be trained to take care of the plants inside, trimming and doing all kinds of other things that one would have working in an agricultural type setting. Okay, people work in greenhouses all the time. We have other greenhouses right here in the town, and we have a greenhouse, by the way, right next door. Okay, and when you talk about the character of the neighborhood, there's a greenhouse right there already. Okay, it's not as big as the one that's being proposed here, but it is a greenhouse. So when you talk about the character of the neighborhood, you're talking about, oh, gee, there's a greenhouse. Oh, by the way, right around the corner, there's a horse farm. Okay, are those in keeping with the neighborhood? Where you have almost like cookie cutter houses. Is Sherwood Forest considered to be part of the neighborhood? Because there are parts of Sherwood Forest that are closer to this facility than some of the communities like Indian Lakes Association, or maybe not Skyline Ridge, but certainly Indian Lakes. Okay, we heard anything from Sherwood Forest and the people that live in Sherwood Forest that come in and basically said that they were concerned about noise or odor or any of these other things. If they're in the neighborhood, okay, how big do we expand this neighborhood out, or what do we look at?
All right, so Bob, before we vote on this at some point, are you going to restate some of these issues that we've discussed tonight as part of our conditions?
Well, that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to figure out if we were going to come to some kind of consensus about the things that we had, and I guess the other board members felt that they would do that after they had a chance to vote. Okay.
I didn't.
Well, then
I'd like to wait till.
I'll poll the board. Do you want to come up with a list of conditions that would be in place if the facility were approved, and then we can vote to approve? Or do we vote to approve and then come up with conditions afterwards? Which way do you want to go?
I'd like to see the conditions. But we haven't heard from Al yet tonight.
First, I'd like to comment on your statement that I think ideally we all would like to see them hire everybody from Becket, if possible, and train them. But I don't think there's a lot of training, but I don't know how we can make that stipulation. They have already agreed to do their best efforts to hire people from Becket. I don't see how we can put a specific number that they have to hire 8 people or however many, half the people, if they can't find the people. So, I don't see how we can put that as a condition, other than making every best effort to do so, which they've
Well, they could have-
essentially already done so.
They could have a recruitment period for Becket residents only, and if they fill all the positions, then they don't need to go out to other communities. If they, if they have a recruitment period and we give them 2 months, because they're gonna be recruiting people before the facility is open, okay, then, and they fill up the candidates in Becket, then they don't go out. If they don't fill the candidates from within Becket, then they start looking, the next phase is to look at people in the surrounding communities,
Fair point.
Just like with any job fair, they certainly start interviewing before they're ready to operate.
So you want a stipulation in the conditions that we have a job fair, okay,
For Becket residents.
for Becket residents only,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
all right?
So I'm in favor of putting in conditions before we take a vote.
I am too.
I am too.
Well, sounds unanimous.
All right, well, then if it's unanimous, then the conditions that I have read, okay, are basically 1, the hours of operation, number 2, the lighting, no visible lighting outside the fence perimeter with full cutoff lighting. Appropriate evergreen landscaping will be established along Quarry Road between the fence and the greenhouse to reduce the visibility of the greenhouse structure, okay? An indoor grow facility will have the highest quality industrial odor control filters available, all right? And that they will meet, I wrote it somewhere else, they will meet the state-of-the-art odor control standards.
Okay, so you're not adding on the considerations that both James and I discussed, and also Howard?
Hold
Yeah,
on.
can
Have you finished yet? or-
No, I haven't finished,
Okay.
but I'm saying that, if we got to that one and there's something that I didn't put in, then just tell me and I'll put it in there.
Can we inquire from some authority or whatever, whether or not there is an objective test, kind of like what we do with our E. coli counts, Bob?
They have that. That's
They've
the,
already agreed to use the state-of-the-art meter. They mentioned the name of it, which was.
Right,
It's actually written into the community host agreement.
All
it's
right, but is there-
already,
Meter.
it's already
But
there.
is there a number on that meter on the scale that we can?
I don't know. I mean,
Well, I'm saying, can we document? Can we find out from somebody?
It's the fact is that it's the latest state-of-the-art, monitoring device that is available, okay? Tomorrow, there'll be something newer, okay? At some point, you have to decide, that on whatever that system happens to be. And, if we state something and, something newer comes out, does that mean that that they don't have to upgrade to the newer system? I don't know, it's,
Howard, would it be helpful for me to read the
Read it.
condition that's in
Read
the
it.
select board?
Sure, go ahead.
The company shall ensure that odor from the establishment is not released so as to constitute a nuisance to the surrounding properties. The company shall utilize a closed air system at the establishment to not relieve or introduce any outdoor air into the establishment, nor allow any indoor air to escape. The company shall employ odor control technologies to remove odors and harmful volatile organic compounds from the establishment. The company shall ensure proper maintenance of all mitigation equipment to ensure maximum efficiency. I would suggest, and I assume that's the select board, the following revisions. In addition, the company shall conduct odor tests at the establishment annually or more frequently as requested by the select board, using an ophodometer
Right.
to ensure that odors are being properly mitigated to the satisfaction of the select board. The company shall provide the town 2 weeks written notice prior to said testing, and upon request of the select board, shall schedule the test to be conducted at a mutually agreeable date and time, such as that of a designee of the select board may be present. In event of the town receives 5 or more complaints from citizens representing separate households within a 2-week period with respect to odor impacts in relation to operation of the establishment, the company shall be required to meet with the select board, which may require that additional mitigation measures be taken at the company's sole expense to address the specific nature of the complaints. Nothing set forth herein shall limit the authority or jurisdiction of the building inspector, Board of Health, or any other local enforcement official from enforcing applicable state laws and regulations. The town's local bylaws and regulations with respect to odor violations.
And that, Howard,
Well, that seems pretty comprehensive to me. I'm comfortable with that.
the town's attorney and Tetrahydra Agtech's attorney, okay? That, I mean, are we gonna get more specific?
No,
than that?
no, I'm very comfortable with that. That seems very comprehensive.
I'm not very comfortable with that. We don't have Board of Health inspector, just a question as far as the Board of Health.
It's right in there.
No, how often, something like once a year, it was mentioned?
Or more frequently,
Well, I think-
as requested by the select.
By the select board.
No, well, until.
The select board can come up anytime and say they want to do it.
Until they meet, you have to go to the meeting, you have to write.
No, you
a
don't
letter,
have to
you
go
call
to the
up.
meeting.
They have to work a time arrangement for the people from the select board to come and take a look or get
They
involved.
meet every 2 weeks, okay?
2 weeks is too long.
And if somebody complains to the town administrator, they're not set. How many times have we met? We're meeting right now at a time, we're only required to meet 12 times a year by statute. That's what we're required to meet. How many times did we meet last year? Did we meet 12 or did we meet more?
I don't know.
Oh, God. Well, we certainly met more, and we've met more so far this
Yes, of
year,
course.
okay?
You asked me how many, I can't give you a
Well,
specific number.
I can't either because I don't have my notes. You'll read it.
I don't think that is relevant.
We can meet at a 2 days notice.
It's not.
As a matter of record, if the town administrator gets inundated with phone calls about an abuse here, I could suspect with 48 hours notice, the select board can meet. For example,
That's right.
our board, the Lake District Board, had an issue, Insured Forest had an issue this week that came up, and we decided we were going to have an emergency meeting. We gave 48 hours notice, and we're having a meeting tomorrow morning at
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock your time. So,
Okay, and it was all
Mr.
done.
Chair,
It was all done, it was done by Monday, and we're meeting by Friday. Okay.
the board can meet anytime any board can meet anytime within 48 hours notice.
And
If there's enough of an issue, I can't imagine select board
Bob
would.
Lavery wants to speak, I think.
Who's Bob
Mike,
Lane?
Mike,
Mike.
Mike Lavery, sorry,
Why
Mike.
would he speak?
Because he's on the select board.
Well, we've referenced the select board, so maybe he should have the opportunity to speak on their behalf.
Mike, as the chair, I'll make an exception here. Mike, if you want to answer that question, since we're trying to speak for the select board.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I just did want to interject. I just wanted to set an example. For example, the select board met with 48 hours notice immediately following our regular meeting to have a working meeting for the express purpose of electing or appointing a new interim town administrator. And that was of paramount importance to the town to continue operation, smooth operation. And if we ever had an emergency situation where the town administrator or other officials were contacted, then we could certainly meet with 48 hours or even sooner notice. 48 hours is just a requirement by open meeting law, but they have stipulations to meet even sooner than that if it's an emergency situation. So, thank you,
All right,
Mr.
thank
Chair.
you. You're absolutely correct, and if we had a declared emergency by the state government, okay, basically open meeting law things and of that nature are more or less suspended anyways. And you have, you've got, I don't want to get into that.
And can anybody on the planning board make a suggestion of additional language, specific additional language that they want to see?
Okay, I'll take that up. First of all, the word may require additional. May is very nebulous. Must, substitute the word must for may. And I'm
We
not-
can't change,
this.
we
Well,
can't change their agreement.
But we can add our own statements and standards and requirements. And so the stronger requirements would take precedence, I believe, over the weaker requirements. Am I right with that? I believe that's legally correct. Also, seasons have to be considered and grow times. So if you go out and you take a smell and odor test and the plants are midway to their fruition, that is different than taking a test when they are fully at their fruition. So I would request, and I'm not guaranteeing I'm voting either at this point, I would request that it should be consecutive with growing seasonal, the development of the plant to its full potential, which would then create more odor. I would also like to, I don't know if that's possible, there are strains of marijuana plants that do not emanate odors at all. Why not include the requirement that some of the plants that are grown are free of odor emanations? I don't know if they're gonna create less money to the business because they're that type of marijuana, but they are marijuana plants and people do purchase them. So that is another potential thing to look at, to have odor-free marijuana plants in there. Let's see. The number of times, again, would be consistent, consecutive with the growing cycle. So it wouldn't just be once a year or twice a year.
It doesn't say that. It says
I know it doesn't.
or frequently or more frequently as requested.
As requested.
I understand that. That is
So
why this,
how can you put more specific in that?
you can, because it depends
You
on
say
the
one,
growing season.
twice
No,
a
no,
week
you
during
say-
the growing cycle?
You could say contingent with the growing cycle.
That's not specific. How many times during the growing cycle?
Well, when plants come to fruition or almost to fruition.
And how many
Because when
times do you wanna do a
I don't-
test?
I don't
Once a
know.
week?
I don't
Well, we
know
have to
each-
be, that's what we have to do if we're gonna put a stipulation.
Well, you can say something to the effect that upon, that once research has determined that certain types of marijuana plants go to fruition on a 4-month cycle, and these guys know when they put in those plants. They've even said to us, well, it comes in about, I think, 4 months or 5 months that it comes to growth. So they know when it would be, the time to test these things. So whichever way you want to word it, it should be that specific as far as I'm concerned. We need the objective measurement standard. We need a list as far as I'm concerned with the way the outhouses are reported when people come in and inspect by Board of Health state standards. They write down the date that it was inspected, and if there's a problem when you go in, I hate to be using that as an example, but if you go into the outhouse and it hasn't been tested, you know that. And if it has been tested and there's a problem, then you say you gotta call up right away and make sure that they come by and test it or clean it out or whatever they have to do. So something akin to that, I think we should also be part of our specifications. We can do specifications. You said we could do specifications, but now you're trying to,
I'm not trying to do anything, I'm asking you for what the recommendation day specifications could be, that's all I'm asking.
okay, I'll take back those wording, I didn't mean to accuse you of anything. So again, basically the wording should be contingent upon the growing cycle, development of the specific strain of plant. Each plant has different cycles too. So basically, if you want to be really careful and really observant and overseeing whatever plant is planted, of all the many types that they do plant, you would need to know when each plant comes into.
So can I ask you one question? Are you talking about testing at the facility, or are you talking about going around town and testing all around town?
I'm saying odor that is emanating outside the facility at the time of the fruition of
But
the
how
growing
do
season.
you, okay,
How do you know that that even is going to happen?
Well, hopefully it doesn't. That's the point. The point is to try and make sure that if that odor comes out, not on January 1st and March 1st, but more specific to the actual growing cycle.
Well, remember, okay, there's a
And that might be
big,
what you say, growing cycle.
there's a big difference between the outdoor grow, which really has one growing cycle. They plant the plants.
Growing cycle indoors continues.
It's continuous, okay, so they could have as many, depending upon how they set up their facility, they could have a crop coming out every, I don't know, probably, what's the length of growth, 16 weeks?
Something like that.
So, well, you could actually almost have a crop coming
Yeah,
out
right.
once a month, okay?
Yeah.
So you're basically saying that they should tell, well, now where do they test? Do they test at the facility? Right? You know, do they have specific locations around town where they test?
I would say at the facility, on a property of the facility.
Okay,
Because winds change, seasons change,
so
you need to have more specifics.
so if they have no odor at the facility and they just document it, then does that meet your requirements?
Yeah, because we have no odors. If they have no.
So
odors,
we could say to them that bi-monthly, okay, every 2 weeks, they would actually have to do a test and document and have a little chart inside the building that the building inspector or the town or the select board could go down and take a look at, just like do they do that in the summer and in the winter time down there at the beach?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Wait a minute, beach.
There's a greenhouse or an outhouse there year round.
There's the owls year round. Are they testing that in the winter time too?
I'm not on the board of health, so
They
I
don't
wouldn't
test,
know.
outhouses aren't tested, they're cleaned.
They're clean.
They're cleaned. That's right. They're not tested.
Well,
Okay,
it's
they're
another way,
cleaned. Okay.
another word for the same thing.
No, that's not, testing and cleaning is two different things, okay? There's
Well, I
no
think
guarantee that they're gonna be
I see what
sanitized,
I think I
probably.
see what she's saying, she just wants to see.
I know, but I'm trying to get back to the issue of, okay, so if we're gonna require testing of the facility, okay, is it going to be at a specific location in the facility? You know, we're gonna get that specific, we're gonna say each corner of the building, and it has to be tested every 2 weeks. And if they get a positive test there, then they're gonna have to report that back to the select board. And because the select board is the one that has decided to take this on. The planning board hasn't decided to take this on. It's really, as I said, the real person that is responsible, and it didn't say that. There's a big difference between building inspector and code enforcer, okay? It's one person with two different hats that he wears, okay? And at one time, Richard Furlong who was the town administrator at a point in time when we didn't have a building inspector, he became the code enforcer. Okay, and they had to change the legislation at the state level in order to do that. So let's not get confused between building inspector and code enforcement,
All right,
okay?
so whoever.
The code enforcement, so, you know,
I don't care what.
well, I know you don't care, okay?
As long as it's
I care a lot, okay? Because it's gonna put a responsibility on someone, and it should be put on the person who has the responsibility to do that, okay?
We have a
And
code
we
enforcement.
also have that within the bylaw, if you look at section 9, all complaints about anything that go to the building inspector have to be written, okay?
Okay,
No, I'm just saying that, you know, and the building inspector doesn't go around on his own looking for problems. And our current building inspector, who is still here until the end of the month,
No,
has
he's
stated,
gone.
huh?
Bill's gone.
Well,
The
okay.
new the new building inspector started yesterday.
I think that was him that just was.
No, it wasn't. That was a fire.
Well, whenever I was told he was gonna leave on the 31st of the month
Well, it changed. He's not.
okay. But that's what I was told by the
Oh,
town,
geez.
by the current town administrator, okay, Bill
Well, we
Cole.
had a party for him yesterday, a little.
So he's
little
gone,
person,
okay,
he's gone.
so, yes, he's gone, but the law, his position for the entire time that he was here, that he would not act on any complaint
understand.
unless it was written, okay? And,
I need to go to the bathroom.
go ahead. And so that's where the responsibility lies, okay? I don't think and it's already documented in the bylaws that it is his responsibility.
I'm not arguing that.
No,
What
I
name
know.
do you wanna use? Code enforcer or?
Well,
building
you know,
inspector? I don't
all you
care.
have to do is reference that section, and then basically it's based on complaint. Now, if you wanna give him a schedule that he's gonna go out there, like I suggested, every other week, you know, since the growing season, as Al pointed out, could be however many times they have crops. We don't know when they're
No, we
gonna,
don't, they do.
But
have
they don't-
business.
They don't know until they plant.
they don't know until they plant,
But they
okay?
know that there's a crop A has this kind of characteristic.
I
Crop B has this kind of.
I taught school for 38 years. I had to keep a
And I
plan,
taught
kept,
20.
and I had to keep a plan book, okay? And that plan book was not the same from year to year. Things changed every single year.
Oh, the
So-
wind could change too.
What?
The wind could change too.
Well, I'm not saying that, Ann. I'm just saying that, you know, just because they did it this way this year doesn't necessarily mean they may have decided that they want to be on a different cycle. So, you know, I don't know how we're gonna control that. I mean, it basically was left up to the select board, and it was left up to the complaints. When the complaints come in, then they decide to take some action on the complaints. Okay, that was the reason that was all put in that agreement that the select board and the attorneys, the two attorneys, put together for the selectmen to agree to.
I
And the
personally think that it's too nebulous and that it
well, then
benefit the town.
I guess the select board didn't know what they were doing.
That's what you said, I didn't say that.
I didn't say that. I just said, you know, I said, you know, if you're questioning their, you know,
No, I'm not questioning,
what they came up with is not being adequate, then they obviously didn't do an adequate job.
and it doesn't matter because the agreement is severable, okay? So we're putting in our own more strict
Fine,
standards.
well then what do you actually want to put in?
Number one, I don't remember how Howard phrased it, but that was very good. I want a list of times that these plants, whatever plants they are, I mean, it's not a big deal. I mean, for a facility to know exactly, they have a list already of what plants they're planting and the characteristics of it. Just duplicate that list, and then on the basis of that, we would initiate from during different seasons and at different times of day, an odor inspection device to be used to determine the level of emission from the plant at specific locations on their property. I think I addressed mostly what you were referring to.
All right. Anybody want to put that in some kind of language?
Did you get that down?
Every word, no?
Every word.
Does anyone else feel we need that or?
That
other
specificity.
guidelines? I think Howard said no already, but.
It might be a little over the top, but it's moving in the.
You've already said that the language in the host agreement was sufficient, I believe.
The way as I perceive it, based on all the things that, this is the first time I really didn't read the community host agreement, but having heard all that, it seems pretty specific to me.
It's not
James?
specific. It's not at all.
It's specific, but possibly inadequate. I would phrase it that way.
So what do you suggest?
I think,
How
And-
like
frequently?
I said, I brought this one up because I thought it was somewhat inadequate.
And you're the English teacher. You write something up that we can all talk about at the next meeting.
Who?
Isn't Ann an English teacher?
Oh, history.
She,
History. Huh?
wrong subject.
We're all starting to.
So the.
I think the idea of having a bi-monthly outdoor reading sounds legitimate to me. It is not onerous, but it is much more thorough.
Right.
And
I can live with that.
Outdoor,
Bi-monthly outdoor reading.
anywhere outdoor? How
Outdoor,
far
at
from the
specific
facility?
locations.
the thing is, from my perspective, the closer to the facility, the more likely they're gonna get a positive result.
Fine,
It's not-
Do you want to specify?
that's
within
why I
100
mentioned
feet or-
each corner of the building and the midpoint of each building, where the exhaust fans
Oh,
are.
I
you
don't
know, I
think
mean,
they're
they-
gonna be bananas. I think, someone's gonna walk outside, take the measurement, and,
Do they need to do it on all four sides of the building?
No.
nah,
Where would you put it?
I would if I were going to do it, I don't know where the exhaust fans are, but that's
Yeah.
where it's gonna come out. And that's where you would that's where you
I
would
agree.
monitor it,
within
okay?
100 feet of the exhaust fan?
That sounds reasonable.
Well, not even 100, it's probably within 50 feet.
50 feet.
50 feet, Well, 50 feet is the fence, okay?
Well, they can stand by the fence and take a measurement.
Take a
I
measure.
think we're suggesting bi-monthly outdoor measurements within 100 or 50 feet of the exhaust, of wall of each exhaust fan. How does that sound?
Good.
That sounds reasonable.
That goes to Ann's reasonable man standard.
That's
All right, so
Does that mean women don't count?
You're a reasonable man.
don't even go there. Don't even go there, okay?
Reasonable person standard.
Very good.
Okay, so we've got to that one, okay? The 6 foot security fence. Are we good with the 6 foot security fence? Ann basically doesn't like the fact that it's black, okay?
Ugly.
What color did you have in mind, Ann?
Any voting on it?
I'm telling you, okay? You wanna put white out there, it's gonna stand out like a sore thumb, or, even in the wintertime. I mean, you could, if you wanna make it a stockade fence, you could make it stockade. You could make it grape stakes, okay? You wanna get really expensive, you could make it a grape stake fence. I used to put those in all the time.
So those, the fences themselves, they come in colors without putting the slats or whatever?
Well, no, what you do is you get them in a natural wood tone, okay? Grape stakes are beautiful
No,
because they
but-
age, okay? But, they eventually turn gray, okay?
Linda Searles, or 2 others.
Ann, what did you have in mind for
Okay,
fencing?
I'm in the middle of a meeting.
What did Howard say?
What did you have in mind for fencing, Ann?
How long is this fence? 75 feet?
No, the fence goes around the
Goes around the
entire
whole-
structure, the entire property, okay?
Security.
The higher the better, to hide that building roof.
It's,
Then it would have to be 25 feet high.
That's
I would think, and again, that's not.
you talk about ugly, okay, now you're talking about really ugly, a 25-foot high fence.
I would like
Okay.
the trees outside instead of behind it, but, can't
The
do it.
problem,
I know, they need the setback, I understand.
they they planned it that way, and the thing is that, you know, where's that plan now?
And they can't move the building back? Why does it have to be there? If it is there.
Technically, the trees are on the outside of the fence, so if they continue along that line, then the trees will be in front of the fence. So you won't even see the fence.
Oh, exactly. My trees lose their leaves or sag in the middle of the winter with ice and snow, so yes, you can see them.
You know, I'm telling you, Ann, I've got arborvitaes in front of my house, okay? You cannot see my house at all during the year, okay? Anytime, winter, summer, all right? The only time you might have is an ice storm when, you know, things get really droopy. But other than that, okay, you can't see it. You can't see
Well,
through it.
chain link fence to me is industrial looking. Stockade fence, wood, that would be blending into a natural wood coated so that it doesn't rust out, you know what I mean, or
Well,
else.
wood doesn't rust out, wood rots,
You know,
okay?
rot, right, what do you call that, seasonal,
Do you want that, can they have chain link fence on the backside where there's no, you know,
nobody can
there's
see
nobody
it
can see it?
at the present time.
Nobody can go onto any of the property around there, it's all
I
posted,
know.
well, it could be should the land all be posted? Do we wanna have signage all the way around the property?
No,
Trespass.
ugly as sin and
I
very
agree.
off-putting.
I agree with you, okay, you know,
I think if you have to choose between chain link with black plastic or a wooden
It's not-
stockade, I'd go with the stockade. If I
are we gonna be that specific? I don't know.
Well, you just
I
asked
thought
me.
we were-
No, I know, I hear you, I'm just saying,
If it would form a consensus, we should be.
okay,
I
fine.
thought we were just debating on the height, but
No, I think we've decided that the height has to be 6 feet or else it has to be re-litigated.
Right, so 6 feet is fine.
All right, so the question then is, you know, once you put the mesh on the front of it, I mean, you can go over, you know, you haven't seen it, but if you go over there, okay, the mesh, you don't really even see the chain link anymore, all you do is see the mesh, okay?
We also have to, we may be, there may be stipulations in the CCC rules about security which are making our argument moot. I don't know. We can put it forward.
All right, well, we could, subject to any CCC regulations
Right.
regarding
Security, because they
the
might say,
security, because,
they'd be
yeah,
like, what, picket fence, what, you're nuts? You know, you don't know.
all right.
Well, we have wood fences around properties right now. I have a wood fence that's hiding our generator.
True, but
that's
I'm
not
not saying,
controlled
I'm
by
not saying they're bad,
CCC.
I know.
but
That's
they may
okay.
say that for security reasons, that's
Has
not,
to be changed.
it has to be chain link fence with nasty barbed wire and stuff. I don't know.
No,
I don't know what the
no,
rules are.
no,
I don't know what the rules are.
Turrets with machine guns on top.
Turrets with machine guns, okay, you know, yeah, sure, put razor wire up there, we'll keep the
So we're
Ukrainians.
saying a 6-foot
What?
mesh chain link fence in the front.
And the other three sides, it really doesn't make any difference,
Right.
because
No,
there's
I agree.
nobody, you know, it's only the fence up front, so if you
And
want,
of course, and a little bit on the sides, so that as you drive up and you're coming to it, yes, there's a fence here, but you can see the sides, so it would have to go on the corners too for a certain number of feet. Unless there are trees there or growth, but they cut down a lot of trees.
the trees are all, the trees will eventually
And then
all
there's a
grow back.
parking lot, you know, so if they at least put,
The trees are gonna be all along the front of the whole facility.
right, I'm
Right,
talking
you're
about the part that you
You're not gonna
see.
see the fence.
No, you just said the trees are in the back of the fence.
No, we just.
No,
put them
we
in
just
front.
looked at it, the trees are actually in the front of the fence along the road, so you're gonna actually see trees. And then behind the trees, when the trees fully foliate, or they're gonna be, if they're evergreens, okay, then you're not gonna see the fence at all, okay? I mean, I've got,
Especially if it's meshed.
huh?
I said especially if it's meshed green, then
Oh.
you would see it.
I'm telling you, we had this discussion going back to when they were putting the first cell towers in. and we had a discussion as to whether or not they were gonna paint the cell towers or whether they were gonna be, the gray, the normal gray steel that they have, okay? And if we had a huge discussion.
Can we just stick to the fence?
Well, no, it's all has to do with the color, okay? And so some towns actually went out and they said, we're gonna make these poles, okay? We're
Look
gonna
like
camouflage
trees.
them as pine trees, okay?
I know.
And you know what?
They look
Okay,
like toilet brush.
That's exactly right.
So what do we wanna say? Chain mesh fence, we don't care about the color?
It says a 6 foot tall security fence with a mesh screening, it doesn't specify color,
That's
will be
fine.
erected and maintained to minimize the visual impact of the greenhouse from the public way.
That's fine with me. With the trees in front.
Trees in front.
That's fine with me.
No comment.
Okay, what's next?
All right, next was during the summer months, from May 1st to September 30th, Tetra Hydro will employ Becket police officers in a paid police, and I take out the word Becket, and police officers in a paid police patrol capacity. That everybody good with that one?
No.
They agreed to do that. They actually thought that and the police chief was the one that mentioned that, and it was all had to do with the activity that's going on across the street in the historic quarry, okay? Where kids are going, huh?
Anything else?
Next one, the special permit is contingent upon the conservation and Board of Health compliance. I don't think, we have any questions about that?
Absolutely no.
No, okay.
Don't know anything.
Do we
about
have
it.
to say
Operation-
CCC as well?
Huh?
Is that taken? Do we have to say and a license from the CCC, or is that taken for granted?
They're not going anywhere without a license for the CCC, okay? Believe me, we had an inspector, okay, with our friend down there that has the only licensed facility in town, all right, contact us repeatedly, okay, to make sure that we were all, that everything was okay, all right, with that facility. Operations must comply with other town noise or hours of operation restrictions, okay? Again, the town doesn't really have a noise control bylaw. Do we really, huh?
We had talked about it and then discarded, we didn't have time or.
Well, it's not us. This is a general,
I mean, in general. we
right,
had
in
talked
general,
about it.
okay? The only time that we had any kind of something like that was with wind turbines, because wind turbines generate a hum or a noise, okay? And so there were very specific conditions as to how many feet from the property, okay, that you had to be set back from the property lines, okay? So, you know, I guess, you know, if we could set some kind of standard that would basically said, you know, that the decibel level could be no greater than, and no greater than a lawnmower, no greater than, you know, which could be pretty loud. I mean, you know.
I know, my neighbor uses his riding mower all the time, drives me nuts. But,
Do we want to set a decibel level?
What did we do for wind turbine levels? We did have a decibel level.
We had a decibel level, and basically it was, I don't know, we could look it up. You can look it up. I think it's,
Fine. But I don't remember. Small wind.
the problem
It was
with
not a- it was
wind
not a-
turbines though isn't decibels, it's the frequency. That's what really drives people bananas, it's that low frequency.
It's the infrastructure sound
Yeah.
that
well,
goes
good,
through your
we got
body.
it, we got it in there. All we have to do is, how about we copy the language out of the
Wind turbine?
wind turbine bylaw. It's already been done. I mean, you know, it was to keep the decibel level at the property line, you know, low.
Density, setbacks, design standards, lighting, and see.
Right.
All right,
Well-
we'll have to look at that.
It's in there. I know it's in there. Okay,
Hey, guys, it's getting late.
yeah. Operations must comply with any other town, or I'm sorry, the easement negotiated with the abutters, do we need to, I think we settled that issue. Negotiated with the abutters
Yeah.
regarding parking and stormwater runoff control must be finalized and submitted to the Berkshire Middle District Registry of Deeds.
Got it.
What is it?
Okay, there are 5 DBA measured at the property lines of the lodgements.
5 dBA, okay, there you go, okay, that's simple. That's 5 dBA is pretty low, okay, that's
It is
like
very
a
low.
walking, yeah,
At the property line.
at the property
Yeah.
line, right, that's fair, okay. Areas that have been previously harvested, are not needed for any cultivation facility, will be planted with USDA windbreak plant species for odor management, okay? And it doesn't have to be, I could take the word odor management out, it's just to ensure that the property that is not being used for anything is regrown, all right?
That's an excellent thing from my perspective.
That way we get the forest back quicker than it would occur naturally. Okay, if we have to wait for natural, reforestation, it will still happen.
It takes 30 years.
It takes a long time. If you can go in there and plant saplings, all right, in 5 years, you're gonna be, it's gonna be like a little forest.
So why do you wanna take out the word odor control?
Well, I said I did because really it really isn't for odor control because the odor was for outdoor grows. But I can leave the word odor in there, that's fine.
That's
Okay.
fine.
So that pretty much is all the special conditions we had. And if we're all in agreement on that, then we can move on to making a decision as to whether we're gonna make a decision about this tonight or whether we're not gonna make a decision about this tonight. I'm prepared to make a decision.
I make a motion that we take a vote.
All right, do we have a second to that motion? Motion has been made to take a vote tonight.
I wanna get done with this already, this has been.
Howard, are you seconding?
I'll second it.
All right, the motion has been made and seconded, all right, that we take it, that I basically poll I've already polled the board that they're willing to do that. That we write up our thoughts and decide whether or not we are going to approve or disapprove this application for Tetrahydra Ag Tech LLC, okay?
You put in there the conditions about the job fair, right?
The conditions on what?
Job fair?
Oh, yeah, I have
Oh,
that.
good, man.
I'm sorry, I wrote that down. Recruit and train Becket residents. And I had the other part about bi-monthly outdoor measurements at the exhaust fans. Those were 2. They have to be flushed out a little bit, but they'll be in there as special conditions.
All right. I call the question. Is there any more
Ready?
discussion?
No, there's no, hearing no further discussion, basically, when you guys are ready, if you're ready, if you've got something previously written or you're writing something or when.
We get papers.
I wasn't
Rewrite
expecting
the whole
this.
thing again?
Huh?
If you have something written already, you don't have to rewrite it,
Yeah.
I'll just email it to you.
that's perfect.
That's fine.
Oh, I'll need something to write on because I'm in the middle
Yeah,
of
I got
writing it. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
And then Howard, if you wanna just email me your decision,
Does it go to you, Jess, or the planning board?
planning
It goes to
board,
the planning
planning
board.
board, yeah.
I'll have to put it I'll put it in the mail.
Is there any specific wording from the other handouts that you gave us? We can just write any old thing now.
What I have on the agenda would be perfect. You mean like what I have for the.
Yeah, well, we could all be, you know, same,
It's
use the
very
same
neat.
language.
Under the bylaw section and. That kind of thing.
Sure.
I just
Okay,
thought,
I have it.
yeah, second. Planning at town of
Planning it
Becket.
down at Becket.org.
Where is it here? It's not on the other side.
It's right,
Planning at town of Becket.
Pull it up. I just
No. Oh, I was talking about what the email was. No, this is like
Okay,
the
you
section
said-
of the bylaw, and
Okay.
that's basically what I'm.
right. Well, take it, it's plenty of time. What do we got? Oh. Yeah, that's public budget. I think Jesse, no budget today?
I didn't get a chance to
Okay,
get
so
it.
budgets-
I was in the meeting all
Budget's an
day.
X, okay? Any other business to come before the board, well, we can do that in public input.
Do we need to discuss anything about it next meeting, how the logistics of it?
Why,
Well, the April meeting has to be by Zoom, because that's the way it was noticed.
right,
Who's going to monitor Zoom?
Oh, I said I would do the Zoom.
Oh, you did?
I just
Okay.
won't do, I just can't.
she won't do the minutes and she won't do the other stuff, but she will do the Zoom part of it. So I don't know, I'll have to talk to the town administrator about getting somebody, we'll have the tape. It's a matter of having somebody to transcribe the tape, transcription
Does
is.
it have to be scratched up?
It does have to be for open meeting law.
It does?
You have to have minutes for a meeting.
Yeah, but, so the recording doesn't,
No.
can't substitute.
The recording doesn't
Yeah,
really
it has to be
suffice,
transcribed.
but given what was going on during COVID-19, they were kind of, they relaxed a little bit, right? So anybody who wanted to, you could just say, okay, fine, we have an unofficial, and you can dial in, just like the meeting that we had, and it ended up on the internet. Okay, yeah, I mean, basically it's there, and if somebody wants to sit there, like Howard did for 2.5 hours, all right, he basically, got right in on the meeting that way.
Listen to it 2 or 3 different times, so I wanted to really hear everything.
So we can refer them to Larry Parnas's wonderful article that he's gonna write tomorrow. You get ice in Pittsfield last night?
No, but when I came over the mountain,
It's on the back way.
I came over the mountain, okay, Linda called me up and told me, gee, did you look out the window this morning? And I went, yeah, and I said, well, it doesn't look any different. She said, well, here it's all ice, okay? And I went, oh, that's interesting, all ice, okay? So I asked her how bad it was, and she basically said, bad enough that I'm not gonna go out. I'm coming over the mountain, okay, I'm looking at the temperature, and the temperature's like 37 degrees, okay, and the ice is still on the trees, but it's dripping, okay? And it was,
You come over the mountain from your place? Isn't that longer?
well, I know, I actually go a lot of different ways. I mean, I'm not a creature of habit,
Yeah.
okay?
All right, guys.
You ready?
I'm not ready, you can talk whatever you want.
Oh,
You mind if he reads his or not?
Yeah, I mind. You have to wait.
You mind? Okay, she's gonna have to wait till she's ready, okay?
I did not write things down ahead of time.
All right.
we should go in alphabetical order.
Did you bring a phone charger with you, right?
You got it right here. That's all. Ready to hook in?
I think I got enough juice, but
Here.
just in case.
Should be able, let me see if I can swing it around the back, okay, or whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't charge as fast as if, well, I actually have.
That's all right.
If you want a faster charge? I got faster charges here.
I went in recently, they wanted to give me a free 13. I
Yeah.
traded in this one. This is a 10.
Oh, yeah, listen, I mean, I did mine at the Apple store, and doing it at the Apple store,
I didn't know you could do trade-ins there.
you can do trade-ins, but you can't, it's not like doing it through the carrier.
Right.
So I ended up paying the full price of the phone, it's like $1,400, okay? So, I was on Verizon, and I was gonna buy another phone for my mother-in-law, all right? And I was just gonna add her onto my account. They're gonna give me a $700
They
phone.
get 800 for this.
Right, but for nothing, okay?
Yeah.
And I went, this is ridiculous, all right?
Yeah, well, Tommy and I I didn't do mine yet, but she got a free upgrade.
So we can plug this in over here.
Oh, that's all right, this is fine.
Okay, that's fine.
I have to trust you though, this is asking me.
Ah. Don't worry about it, okay? You'll just download all the data that I've got on my computer, which is pretty extensive.
don't know whether it's worth it. I still owe $60 on this one, so I would have to pay that off, but I don't really have a need to get.
Well, you know, unfortunately, what I did is because I bought the phone, I paid it all off.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't have to wait 2 or 3 years, okay? I
Yeah,
can
right.
immediately turn it in. And I went, well, how much am I gonna get for my iPhone, my iPhone 12?
Oh, you got
Okay,
a 12.
well, I have a 12, okay,
Yeah.
Linda's got a 13, okay? And I went, maybe I should trade, are you crazy? I'm gonna trade up and I'm gonna spend another $600 for a phone,
Okay,
okay?
you wouldn't have to spend anything.
No, not really, okay?
Yeah, that's because that's what she did.
That's the way.
They gave 800 for this,
Right.
and that's what they charged for the 13.
Right, yeah, exactly, okay. But I wouldn't get the phone that I wanted, which was,
Yes.
you know, with all,
a fancier model.
right, the fancier model with all the bullshit. Listen, I remember when I was a kid and the only phone we had in the house was a party line phone, all right? And it was, you don't remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, okay.
They still had them in Granby, Massachusetts into the 90s.
Yeah, I know. In Maine, they had them up there as well.
I remember we were fortunate enough to get one of the first TVs because my father owned the appliance.
Yeah.
We bought a big magnifying glass to put it on.
Well, remember the screen was
Yeah,
only,
right.
the screen was only that big. And of course, before 7 o'clock, you just saw the test pattern. And after 8 o'clock at night, you saw a test pattern, okay? Today, you can watch anything. It's ridiculous. Oh. And they just came out, Apple just came out with.
I heard they came out with some.
The 27-inch monitor, they've got a 27 and a 32, okay? The 32 is $5,000, all right? Yeah, $5,000, okay?
And I was talking to my sister, she uses an iPhone, but she doesn't have an iPhone, but supposedly they came out with a new cut down version.
Yeah.
Simplified version.
Yeah.
Have you heard about that?
No, I haven't,
Yeah.
I mean, other than,
And they put it like in a 10 case, a 10 frame,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's cheap, it's
Yeah.
only $300-400.
uh,
That was a good idea, I haven't seen it yet, if it's true.
Yeah, if they- I don't know what they do in third world. I mean, they must be subsidized
Oh,
from
yeah.
somewhere else because they're certainly not charging.
Oh,
I'm almost done.
All right, take your time.
So Howard suggested alphabetical, so I guess that means I'm first then.
We're going alphabetical, what, first name or last name, okay?
Go first either way.
You're first. You're first either way. All right, fine, you can go first, okay?
Is Ann ready?
Well, as soon as Ann is done, then Al.
Just another 10, 15 minutes, I'll be fine now.
Well, we're waiting, I mean, there was that,
Did anybody here at the select board approve the interim? They were voting on that yesterday.
I think they did, and
They were voting, I don't know whether they voted yes or not. I didn't hear the vote. I assume they did because we recommended.
It'll be interesting,
Interim which?
interim town administrator,
Oh.
we have a temporary town clerk who was only here from 10 to 2 on Saturdays, okay? So,
Saturday?
that's
Most
right,
Saturdays.
huh?
Most Saturdays.
Okay, so
Man,
getting this, whatever, we have to, the special permit approval or denial, okay? We have to go, if it's gotta go to the, town clerk, okay, it's gonna be tricky, okay, because, we don't have anybody here Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and
Well, it's gonna be submitted, not in person, I mean.
oh, I know, I mean,
Do I have to put a date on it? Today's what, the
Oh, I didn't date,
24th.
I didn't
24th.
date mine.
C-24. 2022. Okay.
325.
24.
324.
24.
Oh, 24.
The way we're going, it might be 325.
All right, I
We're
got
working at it.
324, 2022. Okay. Print my name.
I did, under my signature.
Okay.
Ready?
Al's ready. Okay, Al.
During the past many months, I have read all letters and pertinent public articles, as well as listened to the comments regarding this application. I've also visited several similar farming industrial sites, including one that was owned by the applicant. Based on the full record of this application, as well as the majority supportive vote by the town residents to allow cultivation, the decision to conditionally approve the community host agreement by the Board of Selectmen, and the requested adjustments made by the applicant, I vote to approve the Tetrahydra LLC special permit application on 509 Quarry Road, map 416, lot 10, with the provisions that the conditions agreed to at tonight's planning board meeting are made part of this agreement.
Oh, pretty good.
10.1, just put it, 10.1,
10.1?
last 10.1.
Okay, I'll change that. Thank you. Who's next on the alphabet?
Are we going first or last?
First or last name?
Last,
It doesn't matter. Ann would be second no matter which one.
that's correct.
You guys are getting figured out.
Okay. I, Ann Crowitz, do not approve the application of Tetrahydra AgTech LLC for relief from section 6.8 of the Becket zoning bylaws to operate a tier 11 marijuana cultivation facility at 0 Quarry Road, map lot 416, 10.1 for the following reasons. It is in violation of 1, section 9.4.1, purpose regarding the impact upon the unique and historic resource, to wit, the quarry, now under the ownership and management of the trustees of the reservation, which is a historic resource, which has conducted youth activities on others of the site, and may logically do so on this site. And 2, section 6.8.1, referencing safeguarding the built environment in a manner consistent with community and neighborhood concerns. And 3, section 6.8.8, let's see, 6.8, number 4A, since it is not in the character of the neighborhood.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right, who's next?
Levy.
Okay.
I'm next.
No, Lerner.
Learn
Next.
Lerner's next.
Unless you go by first name, and then James is next. But okay, I vote to approve Tetrahydra AgTech LLC special permit to operate an indoor grow facility as presented under section 6.8 of the Town of Becket zoning bylaws. As they state, they will follow all CCC Massachusetts state requirements and will follow all conditions the board has laid out at our March 24th, 2022 meeting, including but not limited to employment of Becket residents, fencing, lighting, landscaping, safety concern, odor emission rules, and Conservation Commission and Board of Health approval.
James?
Okay, this is the worst thing I've ever written in my life. Okay, given the conditions stipulated and the tax revenue and employment possibilities, which I believe will benefit this town, conditional on the execution of the conditions set forth by the planning board, I vote to grant the special permit to Tetrahydra under consideration at this time.
Okay. All right. Given that the residents of Becket overwhelmingly approved the state referendums regarding medical and recreational marijuana in 2012 and 2016, and in 2018 again approved the town's marijuana zoning bylaws to allow marijuana cultivation, both indoors and outdoors, by an overwhelming margin, I vote to approve Tetrahydra AgTex LLC special permit to operate a Tier 11 marijuana cultivation facility at 0 Quarry Road, map 416/10.1. All right. The applicant has stated throughout the hearing that the LLC is committed to adhering to all CCC master regulations and requirements. And furthermore, the applicant has emphasized that they will construct an indoor facility to the satisfaction of the planning board, the Becket building inspector, and address all safety concerns and requirements of the Becket police chief, the fire chief, and the ambulance director. The applicant has agreed to submit a notice of intent with the Department of Environmental Protection, DEP, and meet with the Becket Conservation Commission to review and develop a plan for environmental compliance. The applicant has also agreed to submit its well and septic plans to the Board of Health for compliance and approval. In particular, Tetrahydra AgTech LLC has agreed to install the latest and most efficient state-of-the-art odor control equipment available in the marketplace, and is committed to monitoring odor emissions through its host community agreement previously approved by the Becket Select Board. Additionally, the applicant has agreed to the conditions set forth in the Becket Planning Board with special attention to lighting, off-street parking, fencing, screening, landscaping, and paid police details during the summer months, as well as all the other conditions that were discussed at this meeting. Robert Ronzio, 3/24/2022. Thank you. So basically what we have done is we have approved this application. The next step is to take this along with all the conditions, write this all up, and get this to the town clerk. The town clerk will then have an opportunity to, once they get it, the next step in the process would be, let me see,
Appeal period?
Oh, I don't even have it. I had it, and I got lost in place.
That's when the appeal period starts.
Yeah, that's when the appeal period starts. And so the appeal period will, once the application is received by the town clerk, the appeal period will last for 20 days. Okay, any appeal will be to the Superior Court in Berkshire County, and that appeal will, if there is an appeal, then the courts will then intervene in this matter. Okay, if there are no appeals during that period of time, then the applicant can then proceed with the going forward with the other provisions. All right, getting together with the
It needs to be filed with the registry of deeds.
yeah, well, it needs to be filed with the registry of deeds before they can proceed. But prior to that, okay, they still have two other requirements for compliance here, and that is, as I stated in my remarks, they will need to make sure that they meet all the requirements of the Becket Conservation Commission, DEP, and that they submit plans to the Becket Board of Health and get approval from them for those two things. At that point, they're free to start construction on their facility. I would remind them that any work that they might try to do before then, if this permit is overturned at the legislative not the legislative, at the judicial level, then, you know, you'll be behind the eight ball, okay? But, I would want to say, congratulations to, you know, all of the members of the board, who voted on this and took the time. We spent an awful lot of time, as Al, pointed out earlier. He read all of the documentation. I read all of the documentation. I read a lot of stuff that wasn't even brought up before the board, okay? You know, it's important for people in the town to understand that, you know, this is kind of a thankless job at times. You know, we do it out of love for the town of Becket. And while people may not all agree with the decision that we've arrived at tonight, it's the decision that the board has made, and you know, it's the one that the board members obviously felt was in the best interest of the town. With that, I'm
Our
going to.
board members,
Huh?
4 out of 5.
Oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't unanimous, it was 4 out of 5. There were 4 positive votes and one abstention. Oh, no, I'm sorry, one negative vote and no abstentions, okay? And, you know, that's all they needed to get the permit. You know, it's other plans that have come before us have been unanimous, okay? I don't remember in any time in recent history where we have basically not rendered a unanimous decision. It's either been a unanimous decision in favor of the applicant or in some cases a disapproval, but it's been pretty much unanimous. It wasn't today, and that's just fine. That's just fine. That's the way it is, okay? So, what we're gonna do is we're gonna move on to the next item on the agenda. The next item on the agenda is to basically have public input. And I just want to remind everybody that, you know, there is the lateness of the hour, it's already 9 o'clock. I would appreciate it if you would keep your remarks or your questions to the minimum, okay? So on that note, as I look out on the Zoom board, I don't see anybody with their hand raised. Jesse, do you want to scroll through everybody and see what we got?
I don't see anyone in screen.
There's one hand up there.
Michael Goodenough.
Yep, sure. Michael, you're being recognized.
Yeah, and I know it's a thankless job, folks, and I actually want to say thank you very much for all of the time and all of the effort, and to the folks that are out there that were not in favor of this happening. I look forward to providing you with the first tours of the facility when it's up and running to help kibosh any of the concerns and to prove to you. But I thank the board, I thank the town, and all the time and all the effort that's been there. It is a thankless job, and honestly, it's a huge amount of information, and I am humbled, and I thank you sincerely.
All right, thank you, Michael. All right, next, do we have, as we scroll through there?
I don't see any hands.
I don't see any there. Do you want to go to the next screen?
Yeah, no one's on screen.
All right.
Anybody on the phone?
No, when somebody puts their
Howard?
When somebody puts their hand up, it usually go to the upper left-hand corner.
Right, yeah, we've noticed that. We're not seeing any hands raised. We don't see anybody waving. And, you know, like Al said, we're looking for the people who are not visible on the screen. You know, who may have called in.
Most cameras are off and,
All right, well, that takes care of public input. The next thing on the item is the budget, and Jesse has basically informed us earlier that she did
I was
not.
in a meeting basically all day, and then I had to take care of things after the meeting.
She's basically
No
doing
problem.
2 jobs, okay?